Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Mike, for the introductions, and thank you to the Department of Education for providing us with this amazing opportunity to present to you this morning the Louisiana statewide K through 12 Behavior Threat Assessment and Management Prevention Plan, and a very comprehensive presentation on developing your behavior threat assessments and your teams. The BTAM prevention plan goals and objectives is to create a standardized BTAM tool to be recommended to all schools in Louisiana, to establish statewide procedures, guidelines, and processes for you to follow, to establish a central reporting mechanism to include software to collect threat and analytics and to allow for BTAM case management, and also to establish a statewide training program. For over 2 years, we have been working on developing a BTAM plan to be implemented in Louisiana. Last year, 2023, we sent out a behavior threat assessment, mental health, and grant survey. The purpose of the survey was to identify parishes that are using a BTAM tool and those that weren't, to help determine the training needs for the state, to collect mental health resources across the state, and to help identify other grants available. Out of the 280, over 2,800 email addresses, 263 responded to the survey. I am proud to say that over 90% of Louisiana parishes responded to the survey. So at least we had a 90%. We will be able to say that we can gather the information from 90% of the Louisiana parishes. The survey went out to all schools, K through 12, public, non-public, charter schools, and private, including but not limited to school-related associations, stakeholders, partners, resource officers, mental health stakeholders, the Department of Education, LDH, Office of Public Health Partners, and to the heads of the Catholic schools. The survey results included, starting with question 1, does your school system use a BTAM tool? 43% said yes, and 43% said no. I know that's kind of odd, but that's the way the numbers ran. Is your school system interested in using a BTAM tool? Over 64% said yes. And I would say the 29% is most likely your state department's Office of Public Health, those folks, those partners. What behavior threat assessment tools, resources were you familiar with? Over 30% identified the 4 BTAM tools, best practices that are used across the state, but 70% says none. And what that told me right there is that we had a huge training curve that we had to provide to the state regarding behavior threat assessment. What behavior threat assessment data report system software that you were familiar with? 90% said none, but 22% did identify some data systems across the state. Would you be interested in participating in a behavior threat assessment work group? 67% said yes. Would you be interested in attending a statewide behavior threat assessment mental health prevention training? And 87% said yes. We are very happy that 73% of you provided us with mental health resources for across the state, and 25% of you all provided a list of grants to be used for funds for BTAM training. So during the development of the BTAM implementation, nationwide BTAM research was conducted to identify best practice across the state, across the country. Evidence-based BTAM methodologies and tools. I will stop right here, is that what I wanted to show, what we showed is that we do not need to reinvent this tool. This work and the tools that have been developed across the country already been in place. We wanted to identify what was best practice and to bring here to Louisiana. Nationwide BTAM experts and professionals were consulted with ongoing collaboration. A multi-state BTAM2 comparison research. I compared was completed. I wanted to see compare the BTAM2s across the state from one state to another state, Texas, Arkansas. Wanted to see what they were doing. What are our partners across the country were doing. Also, a statewide BTAM2 audit was completed. I wanted to see what tools that were used within our state and what we were doing regarding behavior threat assessment tools. We also have developed an advisory group. This group, the purpose of the advisory group is to provide oversight, give feedback, recommendation, and guidance. This is a very diverse group with the goal for you to have a voice through one of our partners. We also have developed statewide mental health group resources, which includes school-based mental health, suicide, human trafficking. So how are we going to implement? I'm very, very pleased, as Mike stated earlier, that the Department of Education has provided us with funds to do statewide training throughout the state. So using the Bessie board map, we have conducted almost half. Almost half. As you can see with the flyer, we are partnering with the Principals Association. We've completed up north. May's Bessie District 4, Bessie District 5, 8, and 6. For July's training, we're training Bessie District 1 and 2, 7, and 3. We also will be doing a train-the-trainer session. However, you must attend the foundational training sessions first before you can attend the train-the-trainer sessions. These sessions will be offered in August and September. So we're going to pause right here. As you can see, the sessions are open. Training is open right now. You can take a little moment and go ahead and register if you want. We have July 18th and 19th. That's next week in St. John the Baptist. The following week, July 22nd and 23rd, 25th and 26th, we will be in Jefferson Parish, Davis Parish, and Terrebonne Parish. So we're going to take a second right here for you to use your telephone, take a picture of the QR code to register. Right. So further implementation, as Mike spoke earlier, we have identified single consultant to do our training. We will be partnering with Tangible Hope Parish to do a pilot program on the BTAM2. We're also looking at software. As we stated earlier, we need software to collect analytics and for your case management processes. We've already established our stakeholders, our statewide stakeholders and partners. Moving forward, we will be implementing policy and legislation. The BTAM prevention tool will be recommended to all schools K through 12 state of Louisiana. Currently, all schools should have a BTAM tool, and a team. A team should include your school administrator, mental health professional, and school resource officers. That's included but not limited. You can have other partners, but at this time, you should at least have these 3 disciplines. As Mike stated early, regarding Act 337 requires a district threat assessment team to be created and provides that they have input on the creation and the revisions of your school crisis management and response plan. This has been enacted in law as of last year. Yes, so BTAM is a life-saving tool. I always like to end my presentation saying that if we have the proper tool and proper training, we can redirect the pathway to violence. We have that power with information, with training, with the proper tool. Jeff will be providing additional resources, but I want to stop right here and bring attention to the Association of Threat Assessment Professionals, ATAP. ATAP is a national organization with international affiliation. It provides education and professional resources, networking, training opportunities, monthly training, yearly conferences. It also gives you the opportunity to become a certified threat manager. Yes, so prevention, and again, I like to end my presentation by saying a quote from Dr. Cornell: prevention starts before guns show up. If we put as much resources and funds into prevention as we do into hardening schools, our outcomes of our schools will definitely increase. Next slide. This is my information. I will tell you I am in transition right here. I have my cell phone number, not my office number, because I am definitely between the state police and the Center for Safe Schools. So if you need to reach me or you need more information about the trainings moving forward, please give me a call on my cell. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to my partner, Jeff. You can take it away.
Great. Thank you, Janice. Good morning, everybody. I'm calling to you from California and really appreciate the opportunity on behalf of Dr. Gene Dysinger and Dysinger Consulting. We're very honored to be part of this incredible opportunity to present to this group and to help facilitate the sharing of information. The committee did a fantastic job of corralling experts in this field, and I enjoyed sitting through yesterday's presentations, and I also will be enjoying today's presentations after this one. So thank you again for the opportunity. It's been a fantastic partnership with Janice and the entire state. I've really enjoyed my time in Louisiana, and I will be traveling back your way next week. So looking forward to finalizing the foundational training, which Janice had showed you just a little while ago, which will then facilitate the opportunity to partake in the Train the Facilitator sessions. So the material I'm about to present to you is really a snapshot of the two-day training that we've been conducting and will conclude next week. And the importance of this is to appreciate how much material the attendees are sitting through, and just how much information is required to truly understand this subject matter. The 2 days is a horse race, really, from start to finish, concluding with a case study. And on the second day of the training, we walk the participants through an actual scenario where they facilitate all of the information sharing and identification of problematic behavior, troubling behavior, and then assess and then provide management strategies with that circumstance. The attendees we've had so far have been excellent. They've really been engaged in the process, and I look forward to the attendees that we'll have next week and beyond that. So with that, we'll get started and we'll get through the presentation here. Again, this will be a lot of information, and so stick with me. But I do appreciate you taking the 2 days today to train with us and to talk about this important topic. So Michael was very kind to provide my background, and this is my 27 plus years with the Bureau, summed up in my very comfortable leather chair, but all of the associations I've had within the Bureau and outside. Probably the greatest partnerships I've experienced has been with educators and those in the education field in looking to mitigate threats of violence. So again, I'm so grateful that each one of you have taken the time to learn more about this subject matter to ensure the safety of all students throughout the state of Louisiana. When we look at threat assessment and threat management, it is a process. Similar to the violence that is taken upon by individuals, that is a process. So is our threat assessment and threat management. It is a process, and we're going to walk through that process now. If there's a little bit of a delay, it's Janice and I working together as we have as great partners, and she will be advancing the slides for me. And so I am appreciative that Janice has taken the time to do that. In threat assessment and threat management, we must first identify the subject or the situation that's bringing concern to us. And so, as we're going through, and as you as a community go through and build these tools and adopt these tools and these opportunities to identify this will become essential. If we don't know what's happening, it's very difficult to address that situation. However, once we've identified it and now we understand there's a student or person of concern in front of us, we're going to want to inquire. And that it involves conducting investigations, gathering information from a variety of sources, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Once we've gathered that data, we now, as a team, will sit and assess the situation, assess what we're looking at, and then based upon that assessment, then develop management strategies. How can we now manage all elements of the situation to ensure the safety of it and the safe outcome? And if you can advance it one more time, Janice. So concerning or aberrant behavior, the DHS model of see something, say something is only a bumper sticker unless you truly know what to look for. The training that Janice has cultivated in partnering with us allows us to present that concerning behavior. As we help to educate our community members and talk with those that are in a position to identify this behavior, it's really essential to know what to look for. And so, in those 2-day trainings and in that facilitator training, we really reinforce behaviors that are consistent with individuals who are looking to conduct an act of violence. Next, please. So, what is a threat? This is often a difficult subject when we work with law enforcement partners and then other community members. Sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between what is legally considered a threat and then what we consider a threat in the threat assessment community. When we talk about threats, oftentimes, and if you can think about cases that any one of you have worked or unfortunately any one of you have been part of, there's quite a bit of a gray area. And in that gray area, it becomes really difficult at times to determine what, if anything, should be done with this person or with this behavior. So, as we're looking at the slide here, you can see that a threat can be expressed in a variety of different fashions. It can be a hand gesture, it can be online postings, it can be things that are said to people. And context will become very important to how we evaluate and assess any one of these communications. The difficulty, of course, is how are these perceived by other people? What may be perceived by a threat by one person may not be a threat to another person. So we take this in a very holistic manner as we're looking at the person, the situation, and those individuals involved around it. Becomes really important for us to look at it in a very holistic manner. Next slide. So our goal as threat assessment professionals, as those of you that are contributing to this process, is to support and enhance the health, safety, and well-being of the school community. And that's everybody. That's everybody from the student or person of concern to those that are affected by its behavior, to the community itself. And so in the work that we're currently doing and will continue to do beyond today, is looking to develop those resources and tools that will support and enhance that process. Next. What is of great importance is understand we are not predicting violence. This is very much a preventative process. And in that, there are a variety of things that we will do to help manage the situation. Now, on its surface, those individuals that are affected by it may see it as maybe punitive or adversarial in that maybe there is a suspension or an expulsion. However, the process really is meant to help the individual that is in crisis, that is having trouble, that is communicating that very concerning behavior. But very much the work that we're doing, and frankly, the work that all of you have been doing from the beginning of your careers, is preventative. And so we're continuing that mission here as we provide these tools to you. Next. So now let's get through the essential elements of the process of conducting a threat assessment and threat management. When we look at these programs and we look to develop these sort of processes, it needs to be systematic. And in so doing, we're standardizing the approach. And so when we standardize it, then we're very confident that what we're doing in each one of these cases is consistent. In order to do so, we require a multidisciplinary approach to all threats. It's not just the threat that comes from your student body, but there's certainly other threats that can affect your community, and we'll talk about those. But the multidisciplinary is important. What we'll see in later slides is some of the difficulties that communities have experienced is what we know as a silo. And as we conduct this training, we talk about a silo, and I'll ask you, what is a silo? And a silo, in its very basic understanding, is a container of things, whether it be wheat or grains, whatever it may be, you're containing and storehousing that material. What we look to do is to avoid that in this sort of process. We don't want that information contained in one silo and not shared among other partners. That is where we see failures in the system, where a silo has occurred, information is contained and not shared, and now we don't see the whole picture. Very much like a mosaic painting, the threat assessment process is identifying each one of those tiles on that mosaic. Each of those tiles represent a bit of information that gives us a greater understanding of who this person is and what the situation is. When we take a couple steps back from that mosaic, I now have a very complete picture of what I'm looking at rather than when I'm very close to that individual tile, which may not have contextual importance for me. But I take a couple steps back, and now that picture becomes very, very clear to me. And so, in that multidisciplinary approach, each partner that represents those different groups provides more tiles, more data points for us so we can really truly appreciate what we're seeing with the situation. Ideally, in this systematic approach, we have early warning identification. Again, the sooner that we can determine this concerning behavior, a person of concern, a student of concern, the quicker we can engage that person, bring resources to bear, and really positively affect the outcome of that situation. As we work through the case management, it's important as a team that we continue forward and evolve. This process is constantly evolving, and we evolve with the person of concern and all of those that are affected by it. The process and the group that we're developing will have that longitudinal basis that we'll be able to monitor this process for quite a while, because there is an opportunity for us to engage with this student or person of concern for years at times. So we need a process and a team in place that can do that effectively. We'll talk about the importance, and you all certainly understand this very well. But conducting all of our business in accordance with all the relevant laws, policies, and standards of practice. And Louisiana has some very robust laws that provide some great guidance into how to conduct this sort of work that we're about to do. And then, as I noted before, constantly evolving and getting better at this, learning from prior experiences, bringing that to bear on each case, and just refining our process as we move forward. Next. Again, all threats are important. As we address this, it can't just be the focus upon students. There are other threat actors that are of concern for us. So our goal, again, as we go through this and as we're developing this multidisciplinary teams and bringing to bear all of the partners that will contribute to the success of this program, again, how do we enhance our communication between the team members, between our community? Again, sharing that information and helping people understand how to contribute to the success of this program. The collaboration, all of the work that you've already been doing for the years that you've been employed in your positions, the collaboration with all the state and local entities, your federal partners, really required in this endeavor. The coordination, again, I've been so impressed with the coordination the state has already demonstrated in how you're bringing together the resources to really affect change within your state. And then capitalizing on the grant funding that you've received and all the pre-existing processes that you have, the partners that you have in place between the Fusion Center and all of your partners. Really a great opportunity to bring all of these to the foreground and really engage in this threat assessment process. Next. Again, as I noted previously, there are really strong foundational guidelines that will help you in this process. So as we talk about that multidisciplinary team, take a second here to look at who your team members shall include. And again, as we look through this, this gives us a good opportunity to gather data from essential areas within your community that will help us. And this really speaks to your core group of members, individuals who can bring this information, help us conduct that assessment, and then push out strong management strategies to manage that situation. Next. So as we're establishing these behavioral threat assessment and management teams, you really have to understand the purpose of the team, identifying that purpose. What's the scope of that team, and what authority do you have to function as a team? Developing the membership. You'll certainly have that core group of members. And as we go through our 2-day training, our foundational training, we reinforce the necessity to have a small team that is manageable. At times, we will purposefully put you in a training environment where your team is quite large. And what you'll find is that it is difficult and unruly at times because there's such a large size to it. It becomes difficult to manage all the conversations that are occurring there. So the concept of having a much smaller team is what we advise. You'll have ad hoc members. You'll have other members with specialties that you'll bring in given certain cases. There may be specialists that you'll need to bring in given the circumstances of your investigation that will require that sort of guidance. Talk about the leadership. Who's going to lead that team? Who's going to provide that guidance? And then what other resources do you have that will support it? As we're continuing and building on this team, each of the team members understanding what their responsibilities are, being very conversant in that so they know what's expected of them and what they can expect of other team members. And as we go through the training, developing that process, ensuring that each of the team members knows how this is supposed to be managed, and then really considering how do we report all of this material. What we understand is if it's not documented, it may never have happened. So being able to document what we're doing, being able to refer back to that documentation, because oftentimes these cases do last quite a while. And so having that documentation will be essential to understanding what we did and how it affected, if any way, the situation and that person of concern. Next. So I've been talking for quite a while about all the threats. And so as you consider your schools and the areas around you, how those are affected and what can affect them, the screen here really accurately identifies there's a lot of potential threats that may be brought to your gates at your school. And so we need teams in place that can positively engage with these. And again, why that multidisciplinary approach and the partnerships that you cultivate with your local, state, and federal partners and all the community resources that you have will be really important to the work you're doing. Next. As we develop these processes and we go through this process of developing these teams, engaging with our communities, again, the earlier that we can get involved, the better for the outcome of these investigations. Next. And as we look at the threat assessment process, think about all the folks within your community and on your campus that can contribute to that knowledge base. Who can we reach out to and who can we contact to ensure they know what to look for, provide them education so they can feed back into our process. Again, as we develop that very robust mosaic picture of the situation, the more data points, the more information we can acquire, the better for our assessment, the more accurate assessment, which then contributes to a more effective management. Next. A partner of ours, Rich Wilson, identified this that you cannot connect the dots if you don't collect the dots. And again, that really speaks to the ability to reach out broadly and gather that information from your community, from those students, from the faculty members, from everybody that may have any sort of information about the situation. The better we can collect this, the better for us. Next. When we talk about the reporting, again, we want to ensure the confidentiality and potential anonymity of that reporting, but still the ability to reach back and look at maybe who provided that information. We want to be able to trust but verify the information we're receiving, trust that we're getting accurate and truthful information, but constantly looking to verify that. And we verify it through a variety of means and measures. Uh, as people are reporting that information, some sort of acknowledgement that the information has been received, and then that can support the engagement of that process moving forward. This really speaks to how proper is your reporting mechanism? Do those in the community feel confident that you as a team are going to handle this information in a very responsible manner? Again, as a parent or as a community member, would I want my child or would I feel comfortable providing that information to you? Again, that's a question you have to ask of your team. If we're not behaving properly and we're not behaving in a responsible manner when we receive this information, we do a disservice to our team. Nobody would report this information to us, and now we're at a real deficit. So we really have to take a strong look at how this information is provided to us and how do we safeguard it. Next. When we talk about reporting, and Janice and others have talked about and will talk about different tools that you'll have at your fingertips to allow people to report information to you. Again, how is that information reported? Who receives that information? And then how is it acted upon? Next. So we've talked about this, but a thorough and contextual assessment. Again, context is huge with these cases, but it has to be thorough. I want to verify each of the bits of information that we received. Next. And as we gather, and Janice will click through here, and you can see different areas of information that we will gather from. And this is not an exhaustive list. This certainly can be added to. There's probably other areas of interest that you have and other areas of information that you may have your fingertips on that you can provide to us. And again, why it's so essential that we have that robust multidisciplinary team. But I want to go through as a team member to acquire all of this bits of information. Again, you can see how essential these are when we're developing a really strong, holistic look of that person or student of concern. Next. You're all very keenly aware of social media and the internet and how it affects individuals, how they behave, and where people like to post information. This slide really is meant to reinforce the need for strong experts in this field. Um, the idea that I do what I do best, but I'm going to hire the rest, hire those professionals and engage with those professionals who are very, very strong in social media investigations, who can acquire data for you as a team that puts context into things that we're seeing, information that's being reported. Again, these cases move very quickly, and the ability to have a subject matter expert who can acquire that data, because again, very frequently the information online is perishable. And as we engage with students and persons of concern, and they understand that we've now seen what they've posted online, that information may go away, that may become deleted. And so the greater our ability as team members to acquire this data and safeguard it before it gets deleted will be incredibly important. Again, it's one thing to hear that a threat has been posted online, but think about how better that would be if you actually saw the words that were spoken, you saw the pictures that were posted, the video that was created by that individual. Again, contextually, so great for our assessment of who that person is when we can actually see the words and the imagery that they've posted. Next. As we think about the threat assessment and threat management process, the acronym that we utilize is STEP. A STEP represents subject, target, environment, and precipitating events. In the two-day foundational training, we go into great detail about the importance of each one of these. And as threat assessment professionals, we look to engage in this both in the assessment side and on the management side. Again, assessing that subject, that person or student of concern, what has brought them to our attention, what is potentially their grievance. Janice showed you that pathway to violence. Again, where are they if we can quantify that behavior on that pathway to violence? The target, is it a individual student? Is it an individual teacher? Is it a group of individuals at your school? Is it the entire school in what they represent? Again, until we get into that investigation, we don't know, but those are the questions we need to ask. The environment, what is it around the individual at the school, in their life, in their community that may be contributing both positively and negatively to the situation? And then precipitating events. Again, what is it in their life that may be affecting anything? Dates are a great indicator for us. What of significance are any dates to them personally or maybe historically? April is a very deadly month when we look at violence throughout the United States when we talk about mass casualty events. A precipitating event could also be something we're doing on the management side. Maybe it is the suspension that is looming over the student, or maybe a firing of a faculty member. How is this precipitating event going to affect them in any capacity? And as a team, we want to take the time to really be considerate of what we're doing and how that may affect that person or the situation. Next, please. So again, as we're going through this, we're going to be looking at management plans. We've now gone through the assessment side of this. We have a good and strong understanding of who this person is and the situation, ideally based on a very robust gathering of information. And now we're integrating a very thorough management plan. Next. And as we do this, we really want to individualize this plan for that student and for that situation. Again, in our assessment, we've gone through that step process, and we'll do the same in our management. How are we going to manage the subject of concern? How are we going to manage the target? Much of the work you're going to do and have been doing is in fear management, the fear of potential violence, the fear of what may happen to somebody. So doing that in a very effective way will be important for us. Accountability. As we leave those meetings, as we finish the work we've done in that threat assessment meeting, understanding who is responsible for what action when we leave, and then as we reconvene later, again, that constant evolution, who is responsible for bringing that information back to us. Our assessment will then continue and grow with the individual. And so we go through this as we manage the environment potentially, and then any precipitating events, trying to anticipate how this person may react to things that we're doing to help manage the situation. And rapport is huge. Rapport with the student of concern, the person of concern, whether that be somebody outside the school or certainly a faculty or staff member, maintaining that sense of rapport with them because we need this. The interviews you conduct will not necessarily be a one-off. This may be a relationship we're developing and cultivating with this person that may be long-term. So again, the importance of maintaining that rapport with that person, and then certainly with family and friends around that person, developing a relationship with them to ensure that we're getting good information that we can, again, go back and verify all of the things that we're learning about this person and about this situation. Next, please. And we've talked about this. So now longitudinally, how are we going to look at this person, both in the short and long term? Next. And as we go through, and these are all the things that we've talked about, and I think being able to conceptualize this visually helps us have a better appreciation for what we're doing. We've talked about the identification of that threatening or concerning behavior. The threat assessment team's now been notified. We're gathering information, conducting that contextual assessment, now developing that very strong, robust management plan, implementing the plan, And as we continue to move with the person, gathering more information because there'll be more tiles to that mosaic that we'll gather along the way, and more context may come to understanding for us. And then in that post-incident recovery, as we're looking at what happened, how can we engage better on the next case? How can we strengthen our team and our process? These teams will grow organically. And as you continue to grow these teams, you'll identify, well, we need this person, we need that skill set. And so I would encourage you as you continue to strengthen these teams, constantly looking to think outside the box and be flexible. Who else can we bring to this team that will bring a positive outcome for us? Next. Again, we've talked about this, but it's staying consistent with all laws and policies. Next. Again, not an exhaustive list, but certainly being mindful of this and being reliant upon our legal partners, both within your school districts, within the prosecuting attorneys' offices, working with them to ensure that we are compliant with all of these, because we want to be very clear of all of these standards of practice. Next. FERPA is a very important tool for us, safeguarding that information, educational records. But again, knowing that there's opportunities for us to work within this to share information. There are a variety of ways to do that. And in our trainings, we go through this. But again, reliant upon our legal experts for that guidance and getting that training before we get to those cases. So we're very comfortable sharing information, again, within proper guidelines, but sharing that information in a timely way to, again, help facilitate better understanding, better assessment, and then better management. Next. These are a variety of tools and resources for you. Again, there's a lot of work that's already been done. Janice talked about not having to recreate the wheel. A lot of good work has gone into understanding FERPA and HIPAA, those rules that are governing medical records, but looking to reinforce and really strengthen our understanding of this so that we can, in those very dangerous times when we're very concerned about what this person may or may not do, having the ability to share that information within our team. Next. Again, Secret Service, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security have done a tremendous job of cultivating quite a bit of information through empirical data, going through these sort of reports, helping us understand greater how these people engage, how they engage in this behavior. So we understand all of those things that develop to that potential for violence. So these are just a small sampling of research and projects that have been published and are provided to you free of charge, both on the Secret Service and FBI websites. Next. So again, constantly adapting and trying to meet those challenges as we move forward as teams. Next. I talked about this at the very beginning, but trying to avoid as best we can those silo effects. Coordination and communication will be essential here, and going through and helping us avoid that very dangerous pitfall where information is not being shared between partners. But again, the more you stay engaged, the better you communicate with your partners in this coordination, the better we can avoid the silo effect. Next. Some of the pitfalls that we see, and again, there's quite a few that are not listed here, but just considering as we're dealing with these individuals and students of concern, the idea that now we've severed the relationship, that now we're automatically safe, we have to think beyond that and understand that we may not be any closer to being safe just because we've disengaged with them in a very physical way. We may have lost opportunities. So we're not saying not to disengage. There's times where suspensions, expulsions, and firing needs to occur. But in each one of those, we want to go case by case and evaluating the effectiveness of each one of those, ensuring that we're doing right by the subject, by the people of concern, those who are affected by that behavior. So always looking to see how our behavior is affecting the outcomes here. Next, please. And as we continue to engage, going through the process, ensuring that our community is aware of what we're doing, how they can report and stay engaged with us. training, the training that we're doing throughout the summer here, and then we will continue to and stay engaged with providing advanced curriculum, helping each of your team members get better at this process. Again, understanding how the reporting should be conducted, how your team should be screening and triaging these cases, how to bring the most imminent case to the foreground for your team to engage with and to address. Staying within all of those guidelines, developing the guidelines for your team so everybody understands their responsibilities and their roles, and then doing that casework, going through and doing the work as a team. And then your constant improvement as a team, learning from prior experiences, staying engaged with best practices, and then training. This will be the roadmap for success for the state of Louisiana and for each of your school districts. Again, so grateful for the opportunity to have had the chance to come and talk with you folks this morning through the 2-day trainings that we provided in May and June, and it will continue through the summer, and then the train the trainers that Dr. Dysinger will conduct later this summer. I think we may have just a little bit of time for questions. And then the next slide has my contact information. But again, thank you for the time that you've taken for for yesterday and for today, and for all the work that you folks have done in the education field and in the safety field, ensuring your communities have the best resources to stay on top of this very important topic. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff and Janice. Are there any questions? Please drop them in the chat, or you can take yourself off of mute and ask a question.
I apologize. I finished a little early, hoping that we'd be able to engage in some questions.
Yeah, so I think maybe people are being shy. I know there's some questions out there.
There's a question for Jeff. Do we have the tools? I apologize. Do we have the tool that we will use in Louisiana yet?
And I think I'll defer to Janice for this one.
Yes, that's my question. Not as of yet. We are diligently working on developing and implementing a standardized tools to recommend to you. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have something to provide to you. We definitely will inform all schools of this tool and the processes that will go along with it. So thank you for your patience.
The important thing to truly appreciate is the work you've already done. In each of the training sessions we've had, what I've remarked upon is you folks are already keenly aware of behavior. You've been managing behavior in the classroom, at the schools, for your entire careers. So what we're providing here is really structured to a team environment that will allow you to bring that information, that experience to bear within this sort of environment. So learning from us, developing these tools, and learning how to communicate as a team. In the 2 days trainings that we've given that culminates in that case study, it's been really interesting to watch the participants work through those scenarios. And then from each different parish talking about the different tools and resources they have within their communities. So as you folks are moving forward, what I really encourage you to do is think about those resources you have within your communities that you could bring to this sort of situation. There's a lot of different things that we can utilize that will help. And when we talk about off-ramping individuals from that pathway to violence, Janice showed you that slide early in her presentation. And what we talk about is the violence doesn't just happen on a whim. It's not a spontaneous event. The violence we're talking about is planning and preparing by that individual. There's a development from a grievance, that sense of loss or shame that someone has experienced. when unresolved, continues. And it continues, and as that person ruminates on those bad feelings and on that bad circumstance, that's when we start to see things that really begin to be posted online, you see in the classroom. And so as a threat assessment team, what we try to do is engage with that person when they're on that pathway to violence, and then off-ramp them. And so those resources we talked about are helping that individual off-ramp and get to a place where they're less consumed by that desire for violence. So I see a question here asking more about the management intervention side. So what we're talking about here is, let's talk about a student potentially who's been identified as posting concerning behavior online. And it may not arise to a criminal violation. It may just be very concerning behavior. Again, as I talked about very earlier on, is that gray area. It's not that black and white where law enforcement can absolutely take this to the judicial system and affect some sort of change through that mechanism. It's that very uneasy feeling we have that doesn't feel right. The things the person's saying, posting online, feels uncomfortable. As this information is brought to your team, we're going to want to go through that process of acquiring data about this student. How do they engage in the classroom? How do they engage with others outside the classroom? If possible, working with our local partners to understand how they engage in the community outside the school, at home, having those sort of interviews and conversations with friends, faculty members, family members, really trying to get a good assessment of who this person is. In so doing, now we potentially can manage this level of concern for us. The intervention here may be talking about, does this student have access to firearms? And so the intervention may be talking with those parents about what sort of parameters they have on the weapons in the home. How do they safeguard those weapons and to ensure that that student does not have access to those firearms, especially if they've been prolific online or in communications with others where they're talking about wanting to acquire weapons and do those things. So that would be part of that process is trying to safeguard each one of those areas. So as we go through the step process, the subject, what is that grievance? What is it that has them so upset that they're posting and saying things online and wanting to engage in violence? If we can help try to resolve that grievance for them through our process, the better for us. The target, if they've identified a target. So as we're going through and we're trying to manage, again, we're managing the fear, managing the safety of those individuals. So helping them in understanding how to keep themselves safe. The environment, the E in the step process. What is it in the environment that may be contributing to some of the bad feelings this person has, or some of the rules or other things around this person that may be affecting them negatively? So again, we'll look at some of those things and see how we can engage with them. And now the precipitating events. As we're going through our management process, if the school has now determined that this student is to be suspended, then what happens? If the student is no longer allowed to be at campus, and now let's say maybe there is a 2-week suspension that is there, and now the student is not going to be on campus, how do we as a community, as a school, how do we continue to stay engaged with the student? So again, it goes back to the rapport ideally that's been built with that family, to stay engaged with them, to have that conversation with them, to ensure that their student is also receiving services, so that when they do get reintegrated back into that school after that 2-week suspension, that the student is no less for wear. They're not at a real disadvantage when they come back into the school. And again, that becomes part of that environment process. As we reintegrate the student back in after that suspension, how do we reintegrate them? How do we bring them back in, which now to a process where now they don't become a pariah at school, and now that becomes even more difficult for them. So again, it's a constant evolution with that student as we're engaging with them, as we're providing management strategies, and then as we're integrating them back into a campus. During the 2-day trainings, we talk about oftentimes where there need to be potentially an expulsion, or maybe where we have to transition the child from one school to another school. And in that process, that warm handshake from one school to the next, to allow that next school who's receiving that student to understand some of the problems that they had, some of the grievances, and then how our team affected change within that student. So as we go through in a very, very quick blurb, that is how we try to do and conduct the assessment and management in these situations. And that was just a real small example there.
Yes. Yeah, so I just want to say, regardless of what tool that is recommended or what tool we come up with to provide with the state, this training provide you with foundational behavior threat assessment. It would apply to any tool, and that's the beauty of it, beauty of the training. You would learn in-depth behavior threat assessment, training, management to implement in any tool we decide to implement.
And Miss Sarah's comments there about strategic and supportive integration is absolutely critical, and she's right. Being very mindful, we talked about how each one of these management plans needs to be subjective and really individualized for that student. It can't be a one size fits all. And so in that strategic approach to that, it's really identifying the needs of that student. How are they going to be taken care of? Again, these individuals of concern are in crisis. How can we as a community approach and address that crisis in any capacity? We take all threats as real until we can determine otherwise. But again, that becomes part of the team process when we talk about the triage and going through each one of these cases to determine that level of concern for us. And how can we judiciously utilize our resources? What's been a great importance for me in working through the different parishes is to have a better appreciation. Not all communities are created equally. Some communities have a real rich set of resources available to them, and others not so much. And so how can we bring to bear other state resources to them to help them in their endeavor? And that'll be some of the work that we'll continue to do with Janice and with the Department of Education and with the state, helping to grow these programs and to really support you in that enhancement and support of your community safety.
See another question there. Is BTAM required to be implemented on the first day of school? Recommendations.
Recommendations. Jeff, I'm gonna let you answer that.
Oh, actually, I was gonna leave that to you, Janice, and then.
So good morning. My name is Travis Thompson. I'm director for Louisiana Center for Safe Schools. I saw that question and I kind of gave some for Eddie. It's not currently a state mandate as far as in legislation and policy. However, there may be some additional LDOE and BESI policy for expectations, but I'm unaware of any requirements for the 2024-25 school year.
Yes, there will likely be some policy change relative to that, but it's probably not going to require that BTAM teams be in place by the first day of school. That's not in the legislation.
Correct.
We would encourage school systems and schools to develop their teams as quickly as possible and go through the process of organizing those teams.
And we would echo that in the same sentiment. We understand how critical behavioral threat assessment is when we talk about school safety. So it's always been one of the areas of focus for us based on the U.S. Department of Education's 10 recommendations. And so we're behind you 100%, Mike.
And this is what we're seeing across the country, both in the K through 12 and the higher ed, is communities trying to grapple with this concept and develop these teams. And so we're seeing greater push through each state looking to develop teams that will be capable of doing this, because we've seen where in absence of this, it becomes very difficult to manage these sort of cases. To be reliant on just educators to do this sort of work, or just law enforcement, is just not feasible. That multidisciplinary team, bringing in each of our partners, becomes essential. Our mental health partners, being able to help us understand contextually what does certain behavior look like, and what does that mean, and then how to engage with individuals who may be suffering in some capacity. The folks in education, the school records, the observations, all the strategic planning you can have at your fingertips to affect change with these students. It's been really fun to watch the creative way in which each of the teams has come to solutions with these case studies, and how they would engage with students who are demonstrating concerning behavior. And then our law enforcement partners, I've really enjoyed working with the local partners, the sheriff's deputies, in how they perceive this, and how they can work to better share information, and then how they can engage in this process. But again, those three big elements, schools, mental health, law enforcement, all working together, that's where we see the win. And again, that's where we see that very clear mosaic picture of that student or person of concern.
Any additional questions? We have some extra time, so let's keep the dialogue going if we can.
Well, I kind of would like to, like Jeff is kind of hinting at the fact that the whole community stakeholder engagement in providing resources and supports for struggling students. Yeah, even if there was a situation in a student of questions home in which the parents were let's say unemployed, or father just recently lost his job, and so that may be an outside stressor that would definitely I guess kind of impact the students I guess responses and behavior. There may be a shift due to that, and so all of the factors that actually exist within the home, and even if there was the local church who had saw that their participation or attendance had declined, to be able to provide that perspective as far as things that indicate that there's a change within the home, so that not all of the answers are I guess tied to academics or tied to the educational environment, but the whole child, and that's why it takes the whole community.
And Travis, that's a great point. So much happens within the home that educators don't know about, law enforcement doesn't know about. And again, the importance of being flexible in and outside the box thinking in other individuals who may be able to provide greater detail to us. Individuals of faith who can have that sort of insight and can help us. They may be able to help us monitor a little bit what's happening within that family, and to see how anything we're doing as a team has affected that family that may not be shared with us. So again, if we can find that trusted person, how great that would be for our team. And you as educators all know the importance of finding one positive adult role model for children. And so much of the work that we do is trying to find that, finding someone that child engages with and understands and feels comfortable talking with. And again, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about students, but again, the acknowledgement has to be that there are threats from outside as well. And the acknowledgement too that there's going to be times where we just don't know certain things. There are going to be deficits, there are going to be tiles to our mosaic that we don't have access to. And so our assessment may be limited. But again, that's why we constantly look to engage with our community members to acquire that data. But there's good opportunity here. And again, being from an outsider's perspective, seeing where you folks within your communities have that sort of outreach already in place is really gratifying. You folks already know who to go to. And so now it's just really helping the teams develop that process and that framework so they can do that work.
Outstanding. Thank you. Any more questions? right, you may have seen the registration links for the upcoming trainings in the chat again. Also, you should have seen an evaluation for this session, and we can drop that back in the chat again if you didn't see it. But okay. Well,
And Janice, I was trying to make
Janice,
sure you identified that attendees must go through the foundational training before they go to the train the facilitator.
Yes, definitely. If you plan on attending the train the trainer, you must go through the 2-day foundational training. And from that list, I will send out a registration. Registration for the train the trainer will probably most likely go out the first week of August. So if you haven't already signed up, I encourage you to do it. It's an amazing training. You will leave there with a wealth of knowledge to take back to your parishes and start your behavior threat assessment processes. So thank you for those who have already attended and hopefully to see the rest of you all as well.
will there be more foundational trainings?
Will there be more money, Mike?
I knew that was going to be the response. Where's the money?
You know, where's the money? So one of the reasons on the survey, I asked for grants. I wanted to identify what available grants across the state, because as we know, when it comes to mental health, oftentimes we're last on the list. So hopefully we can apply for more grants. We look towards you, and this work is big around the country. So hopefully we can bring more trainings, but I will tell you the responses have been wonderful, and that's the first question they ask. Are there going to be more training? So there you go,
Yes,
Mike.
well, we will make every attempt, because I know I've gotten some inquiries about more trainings, and I think
that's my
yeah.
number one question. And you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the training has been done in the summertime, where a lot of the teachers, they're off for the summer. So it's not a day go by that I get a response, text messages, are there going to be more? And my response that we're gonna do whatever we can to provide this training, because it's such a need.
Agree.
Yeah, Mike, this is Travis again from Center for Safe Schools. We will be pitching in to kind of help out, and we got your back on a lot of those items. We are taking special considerations for the fall and the spring of this coming school year. We don't have it all ironed out yet. I think one of the big components and the part that's continually being worked in the background is actually the management tool for a statewide tool. So I can't give you a lot of details right now, but I tell you, I got a dog in the fight with you, and I'm gonna help you out, buddy.
Yes. Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Janice and Jeff, and for the outstanding work you've done around the state already. I think this is just a starting point, obviously, and so appreciate you being here today and offering your expertise. And we certainly want to continue to work together to expand this opportunity. So thank you so much.
It's been amazing. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you to Jeff for, coming to Louisiana. And I tell him he have a unique opportunity where he have traveled the entire state. So now we're just going to make him an honorary Louisianian.
There you go. All right. Well, great job. So that ends this session. We will go to the next session at 9:30. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here. Thank you again, Jeff and Janice, and we'll see you back at 9:30.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. It's 9:30. Management plans require an all hazards approach, and we must not forget about the need to plan for medical emergencies in schools. Medication administration, sudden cardiac arrest, and CPR training, AED training, trauma training are some of the areas to be considered in the development of a comprehensive medical emergency response plan. We are fortunate to have with us today Dr. Alice Hoyt and Sarah Jane Lowry from Codana. Dr. Hoyt is a board-certified allergist and immunologist, internist, and pediatrician. Before starting her food allergy-focused practice in New Orleans, she worked at world-renowned institutions such as Vanderbilt University and the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Hoyt developed the Codana program in 2016, and it was adopted by multiple local schools. Through tireless advocacy, she has motivated multiple states to update their legislation to increase safety, along with educating medical providers on how to engage and support their communities. Her vision is for all schools to have medical emergency preparedness and optimized safety for all students. Sarah Jane works with educators and communities across the country to make all spaces safer for children. With a background in education and youth development programs, she knows the gaps that are in communities for medical emergency recognition and response. She ensures that all Codana learners have optimal learning experiences and works alongside the organization's leadership in program development and implementation. Along with providing and facilitating education, she is a fierce advocate for medical emergency preparedness through policy and legislative changes. Dr. Hoyt, Sarah Jane, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was a beautiful introduction. And thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. I know that we put the link in the chat for this QR code. This is a link to our MediReady snapshot. It is a quick overview that you can take for either your school, your district, your entire parish, depending on where you are, to give you just a quick look at how you're doing in your medical emergency preparedness. And through this presentation, not only do we address the legislative changes that have happened in Louisiana recently, but we also address the general things that are already happening in schools, legislation or not, and how you can ensure that your campuses are as safe as they can possibly be. Sorry about that. I tried to cough. So Dr. Hoyt, I'm going to let you take it away for this first bit.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Sarah Jane. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. We have no disclosures, no relevant disclosures. And really, to open up this presentation, I want to underscore the importance of being prepared for any medical emergency. Looking at the data shown, what you can see is that nearly 40% of children have at least one lifelong health condition. I don't think anybody on this call that surprises anybody here on this call. About half of those kids have one condition. Some of those kids have, another half have more than one health condition. Next slide, please. And when we break it down, of course, as our kiddos get older, then they're more likely to have a health condition. So let's look at what some of those health conditions can be. Next slide. Allergies. I don't think anybody in Louisiana is surprised by that. And when we're thinking about allergies, sure, we're thinking about pollen allergy, penicillin allergy, but also nearly 10% of children have an IgE-mediated or an anaphylactic food allergy. And then looking at some of these other conditions, ADHD, asthma, anxiety, a learning disability, all of these are incredibly relevant to our children as they proceed through their education. And at the end of the day, really getting a good education is critical to being able to share their gifts with society and contribute to our communities. And what you'll note at the bottom of this slide is that what really doesn't make some of the top percentages here are some of our very serious health conditions like diabetes, like heart conditions. Next slide, please. So it really begs the question, why should schools be equipped to manage those less common medical conditions? Because when we're thinking about sudden cardiac arrest, it's not super common, right? But of course, we have to be prepared to manage that, to manage anaphylaxis, heaven forbid, drug overdose, asthma exacerbation, all of these things. Our children are dealing with these issues. We have to be prepared for them. So next slide. Sarah Jane, I'm going to let you introduce this.
Let's see. So this is a video that we're going to show you about one of the important things to have and keep in mind when you're creating your plan and creating how quickly that you should be able to recognize a medical emergency. So it's not too long.
A high school volleyball game is underway outside Atlanta. The play is intense but friendly. Then a moment of utter horror. A senior suddenly collapses. You can actually hear the thud as she hits the hardwood floor. She lies there, lifeless, as everyone runs to her side. The teen is in full cardiac arrest. One coach performs CPR, but it's not working. It's looking grim for 17-year-old Claire Crawford. Then somebody rushes in with a defibrillator. There it is. It's in the black box. Sure enough, you can see Claire's body jolt from the electric charge. Julie Sermons is the quick-thinking school administrator who used the defibrillator.
Life started to come back in her, and it was wonderful to see.
And this is Claire today. It's a miracle. Claire says she was feeling fine during the volleyball play. Just seconds before she passed out, the ball came her way and she gives it a good whack. But then something goes wrong. She's in distress and clutches her heart, then collapses. Can you tell us what your symptoms were?
I had pain down my left arm and my heart felt like it was working really hard, but I just assumed I was out of shape.
Claire's mom, Lisa, was in the stands watching the volleyball game.
We were just desperately praying. It was 4.5 minutes. I mean, it was a long time to watch them doing compressions, and definitely we thought we'd lost her.
Here's a defibrillator similar to the one that saved Claire's life.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
So it tells you everything. Yes.
Do not touch the patient.
Step by step, it will tell you exactly what to do. If it says stand clear, don't touch.
This is one teen who is truly lucky to be alive. Claire, how are you feeling now?
Feel good, better than before.
So as many times as I've seen that video, it's still, to be quite honest, it brings tears to my eyes to know that this child was this close to death. But because of quick thinking and preparedness on that school's part, that child is alive today. And that really brings us full circle as to what it is we're here to talk about today and what you are going to walk away from this presentation being ready for. So our objectives today are: number one, to identify and interpret medically relevant legislation that pertains to Louisiana schools. Number two, identify gaps in your school's current emergency response plan. And then number three, create an evidence-based school-specific medical emergency response plan and team.
So we're going to quickly go over some of the existing legislation. I know if you were here yesterday, a lot of that was also addressed. And one of the main reasons to have this school safety summit is the passage of the School Safety Act last year and the information that was included in that. And some of that is relative to your medical emergency preparedness. So these are the statutes that were already existing prior to this, and we're going to go over the legislation that was passed this year. It goes into effect August 1, so we're going to get to that, but we're just going to quickly go over these. They address epinephrine and naloxone, sudden cardiac arrest education for school nurses, coaches, and athletic directors, CPR training, the requirements of one AED and a response plan, and then the stop the bleed trauma kits that are required. So this is most of it is in revised statute 17 and below that. So this addresses self-medication for kiddos that have epi, albuterol, and then allowing for schools to have stock epinephrine and also a stock of naloxone. And then with the sudden cardiac arrest education, the nurses, coaches, athletic trainers, athletic directors need to be prepared to recognize sudden cardiac arrest. It's not even just understanding CPR and AED uses, it's understanding why this is so important, why having these plans, why having AEDs is so important on your campus, and how it can create good outcomes. This is talking about just the CPR requirements that were in place and how coaches played into that. This is the new legislation from last year, talking about how every school needed to have an AED. I can always forget what AED stands for. Dr. Hoyt?
Automated external defibrillator, which basically it's a defibrillator. You put the stickers on and it defibrillates.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that it does a lot of the thinking for you. So it's great to have. And then you also have to have trained users on your campus, essentially anytime kiddos are there. And this is also has the requirement of the cardiac emergency response plan.
Yeah, and Sarah Jane, I'll just jump into what you just said. And of course, when you guys have questions, please like put them in the chat. We want this to be super engaging. We want to get all your questions answered. What Sarah Jane just said is really important. It basically, it does all the thinking for you. So an AED, when all you have to do is apply the pads and turn on the machine. It will not shock unless it detects a rhythm that needs to be shocked. And also a misnomer is that these things restart the heart. They do not restart the heart. An AED is used and tells you, hey, apply the shock, and then you push the button that says to shock. It does that when the heart is quivering a certain way that is not adequately pumping blood to the heart. So it's not going to restart a heart. What it's going to do is take a heart that's quivering and not pumping effectively, and it's going to zap it to jump it into a rate that does, or a rhythm that does perfuse, that does pump effectively. So that's really how these devices work, despite what Hollywood likes to try to say. Sarah Jane, tangent number one, y'all.
Tangent number one. Well, we'll have a count. And in this legislation, it also defines what type of team and plan that you need to have to be prepared to respond to these. And a lot of what we talk about later is following this. You need to have that team. You need to have the device. You need to have training. You need to have drills. You need to talk with your first responders in your community. Depending on where you are, either urban, rural, anything in between, having that good relationship with your first responders will make it so much easier and so much less stressful on you and the students when something happens. And especially with medical emergencies, it's not an if, it's a when. And then this is also annually reviewing and evaluating the plan. These plans should integrate perfectly into your school safety. You have to do those EOPs, all hazards. This is a hazard. This is part of it. So it should integrate so easily into what you already have with just the specifics for medical emergencies. And then this is just talking about what the rules are coming from the Department of Health. This is the Stop the Bleed, which is part of the School Safety Act from last year. It's designating bleeding control kits and that employees be trained on it. It is for trauma, and depending on your school, there's no real defined amount that's right for your campus. A lot of times people want to have that, and for a lot of this, everybody's different, so everybody has a different amount.
You're talking about how many Stop the Bleed kits a school needs?
Anything.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get into Medi Ready, as I know you know, Sarah Jane, but just for our attendees.
And then this is just submitting the copy of your plans to the Department of Ed. And Center for Safe Schools, their director, Travis Thompson. So this is the new legislation that was passed this year that goes into effect on August 1st. So the first part of that is an update specifically to naloxone. Previously, up until August 1st, anyone that used it on the campus from the school needed to go through the 6 hours of medication administration training, which was really a bottleneck, especially for schools that didn't have school nurses, or for school nurses themselves trying to bring out their team. Having 6 hours is not something that you can ask every staff member to do. It's just not how
Yeah,
time.
and Sarah Jane, I'll even go further and say that it's not evidence-based. There's no evidence to say that you need 6 hours of training to know how to administer naloxone. And the precedent in Louisiana had already been there was a prescription that anybody could get naloxone and use it, have it in case they, as a good Samaritan, saw something going awry. So, you know, we engage a lot with our amazing state health folks and state ed folks and school nurses in particular, and they said, you know, the 6 hour thing is really difficult for us. So we're very grateful to the legislature for getting that taken out. So exactly as Sarah Jane said, it was a huge bottleneck and it was just not evidence based.
And it really did. It had not having enough people trained, and this makes it easily accessible. There's a lot of options for you, and it can quickly have that, especially in communities being impacted by opioid use. And unfortunately, that is growing.
And the other thing I'll say here about, it's a common question we get when we're talking about emergency medications, such as naloxone, a school stock naloxone, a school's stock epinephrine autoinjector. We'll also talk some about stock albuterol. I know that a lot of nurses have been wanting that too. When we're talking about stock medications, there's a different training requirement for stock medications compared to MAT training. MAT training is training specifically on medications intended to be administered to a specific individual. Emergency medication training is different and is intended to be very easily accessible, easily completed, so that we can get as many people trained on these medications as possible. So I just want, if you're thinking, oh gosh, if we want to have naloxone, we have to have MAT training. No. If you want to have stock epi, you have to have MAT training. No, it's different training, and it's much easier, much more focused.
We do have a question in the chat, and this is something definitely for you, Dr. Hoyt. Is this information outlined anywhere to protect licensed individuals? And I believe that's specifically for school nurses.
That's a great question. Yes. Essentially, this session, we worked with the legislature and we rewrote this section to make sure that the physician, the prescriber, the nurse who is doing any training organizations, any person who is administering the emergency medication absolutely has liability protections. That was critical to get into the law, and that absolutely is in the law.
And so with that naloxone update, we also added having the ability to have emergency medication available for our schools. And right now we are working with the Department of Ed, and I know that we've been talking with Mike Como with this, because with the opioid crisis increasing as fast as it did, it takes a little while to get legislation passed. So we wrote this legislation specifically to allow for an update a lot faster than that when things are impacting our communities across the state. Medical emergencies don't wait for anything. So we want to be able to adapt. And this allows for school nurses and other trained employees to have stock medication and be able to use it when they need it. They're not required to have it, but you're allowed to get these medications if that's something that you choose for your school communities. As of right now, that list is set to include epinephrine, naloxone, albuterol, and glucagon. If there are things that need to be added later in the list for something we haven't encountered yet, there is that availability to update it and a lot faster and make sure schools feel comfortable and get everything they need in the future. And all of this, everybody's indemnified, but it does give schools the ability to be more prepared. And all of these emergency medications are for emergencies. They're not something that can cause long-term effects for people that aren't in emergencies, but they're things that can save lives. So they're really important to have. And we're gonna move on along. And I'm kind of checking the chat. And I know that Stephen is as well. But if y'all have any questions about this, please let us know. All right. My computer's a little bit slow. So coming up, if you haven't, oh, now we're going really far. Okay. So I'm going to go back a little bit. There we go. So this is addressing our MediReady snapshot. This was the QR code at the beginning that we had up in the link. This is an assessment tool. You can get a score of 10, and it's just to give you a high level overview. It's not going into the nitty gritty because we don't have time for that, and every school's different, so it's really hard to apply it. So we're going to go over that in a high level way. Just to give you an idea on what you should be asking yourself, looking at how you're currently set up and how you can improve either quickly or with long-term changes. So this is just a sample snapshot with those 5 questions and a lot of the options. I'm going to go quick over this because we're going to get to the individual questions. And Dr. Hoyt, this is something that I think is really important. You can talk on a lot because it's why this is so important and really the root of it versus we need to just have it because legislation has it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And really the legislation is the product of recognizing what schools need. So when I started doing this type of work, Code Anna in particular, it began because a school reached out to me and said, hey, our school doesn't know how to use an EpiPen and I'm a school nurse, but what if I'm not there? And that really told me, upon starting to investigate this situation further and school emergency medical preparedness in particular, is that the school was unprepared for a medical emergency. And really the philosophical problem with that is that all children should be safe at school. And so when we're dealing with medical emergencies, especially in an education environment as opposed to a hospital environment, we have to keep in mind that the ultimate villain of the story is the medical emergency itself. And yes, discussing and planning for medical emergencies can absolutely be scary and intimidating. And that is exactly why we've developed the Code Anna program, specifically the MediReady program, to help take this and give your school what it specifically needs, because there is no cookie cutter recipe for how to be prepared for medical emergency. But when you start to recognize what challenges your school has, then you're able to start addressing them. And that's what we empower schools to do. And there, I see there's some really good questions in the chat about getting stock medication orders. We will go into that towards the end of the presentation, but basically we really are trying to take as much of the barriers out of this process as possible to encourage the state to provide stock medication orders. And also I personally, or I through my practice, provide stock medication orders all the time. So don't think that that's going to be a roadblock. That won't be a roadblock for you guys.
We're definitely here to help. And Stephen, I know that we've got some polls to go along with this. I'm not able to see anything. There we go. So we're going to do quick quick polls with these questions, even though it goes with our snapshot, and we want everybody to fill that out individually because you'll get emailed your results and help you move through that. But this is just to see kind of what the status is for everybody attending this call. So a big one is, does your school have a school nurse? And if you're on the district or parish-wide, kind of wherever you are, school nurses are great resources, but not everybody is able to have them full-time. It varies and it just kind of depends. So you do need to take into account as you're making plans. Do we have a full-time school nurse, one-to-one on every campus? Do we have a part-time nurse that floats, or she's only there part of the week? Or do we not have school nurses at all? It's very different, and that really does change what your plan looks like. So just from a quick overview, we've had this up for about a minute. I'm going to end it in a second. So it's looking like, yeah, about over 50% of the people on this call have full-time nurse coverage, and that's amazing. Because you do have that medical leader, they're ready to help out and you have that go-to person. But not everybody's like that, and that really does impact how you make your plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that about half of our participants have part-time coverage. I'm sorry, about a fourth have part-time coverage and a fourth have no nurse at all. And for the folks on the call whose schools don't have a nurse at all, do not let that discourage you. The resources that we can provide will absolutely empower your school
Yeah.
to prepare effectively for a medical emergency.
I shouldn't have ended it. Should I post it? All right, we got another one.
Yeah, that's fine. So next up, this one is a really big one and a part of something that people see as a really big struggle. But we are here to help, especially with this one. Are your school employees trained on how to use and recognize use the devices and recognize emergencies? So if you have a nurse, you do have that one person, but if it's a part-time nurse, they get sick, they go on holidays, they might need to do some training like they had the school nurse conference. There are days that they might not be on campus. Do you have people outside of them that know how to recognize those emergencies, that know how to use your devices, especially the ones that might not be as easy as an AED that tells you what to do. There are some that aren't as easy as that. So looking at this, we want to see who's got everybody trained. So this is a lot higher number than I was expecting. Right now, 8% of people responding say that they have everybody trained on everything, which is amazing. These devices aren't easy to use, so it's not unattainable, but it is something you have to commit to because time is limited, especially on PD days. So that's really awesome. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one, and Travis, you do not have to answer to skew our data. So, and then the next one, this is a big one because this will actually change as of 8/1, is do you have all available stock medications and devices? So this is not only do you have an AED, do you have the adequate number? For stock epinephrine, do you have it? Naloxone. Now that training's come out as a hurdle, it's very easy to get. Everybody's trained on it. Stop the bleed kits. And then, Stephen, do we have this whole question up? And then after 8/1, you can also have albuterol and glucagon. These are things that you can have. You don't have to necessarily have everything, but it is important to have those. Let's see. Stephen, have you put that other poll question up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
see.
Sarah Jane, it looks like about 24% feel they have all medications and an adequate number of AEDs, meaning they can be to shocking the person in under 3 minutes. And 59% are partial yes. And then 17% have none of the medications or devices.
Well, especially where this presentation is for those 17%, especially. We want to make sure that we can get you up to the everything, or at least partial. Let's see. Whoop. Hopefully this doesn't skip this one. There you go. All right. So this is having your medical emergency team and prevention protocols. So our favorite saying at Code Anna is teamwork makes the dream work. A school nurse is not an island. No one is on an island to make sure that a school is functioning well. No emergency response is going to be its best without a team. So every emergency should have those people working together, a practice plan, and all of the prevention protocols that you can do for best practices. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds with this one. It looks like everybody's got a plan and a team, especially for this. And you've got things like facility safety, especially with trauma, there's injuries that happen. So making sure that your facilities managers are looped into your medical emergencies is really important because they know how to get through buildings very quickly and what doors work when. So making sure you keep them in the loop when you're making these plans is really important. And then we will address Narcan in a little bit. We've got a slide specifically for how to get these devices. So we'll make sure that we address that because I'm seeing that in the chat. And then we've got our last question of the snapshot. And this is one that I always like to see what the answers are. Do you have a plan that you practice? Plans are great. A lot of times plans are written and kept on a shelf, and that's all you do with it. And even though it's thought through, it's really important to have this practice. So we've got our poll question up, and this is something to see how frequently you practice specifically medical emergencies. Things like fire drills and other drills can seem routine, but medical emergencies are the ones that are most likely to happen on your campus. So these are the ones that you should really be able to be routine and to have people know what to expect and be comfortable with seeing that happen on your campus, especially for your kiddos. Things can be scary, but if you practice it and they know what to expect, it can really help them. Let's see. And do we have the poll question up? I'm not able to see it all the time.
We have, do you have medical emergency team and prevention protocols? But I don't see the practice question.
Yes, we've got, and we'll keep that one up.
Oh, technical difficulties. That's okay.
It's okay.
We'll keep going. No problem.
It's
And
fine.
again, this is the snapshot that you guys all had the QR code that we encourage you to complete for your school, because you're going to start to get some great resources. Oh, here we go. Okay. Do you have a plan that you practice? And yes, you practice quarterly. Yes, you practice once a year, or no, we don't have a plan to practice.
Oh, this is fun to watch this. And then while we're kind of giving you a second for that, so Lindsay, as of right now, there is not a link to those standing orders, but we can help you obtain those medications that you're interested in getting before those comes out, just so we can help you get what you need.
Yeah, as soon as the list of medications is formally approved by the Department of Ed, then we'll have very streamlined approaches for you guys to be able to access your prescriptions. And Codan will be able to help you guys with how to get what medications that you would like for your school.
And then we do have some questions about training options, and that is something we're going to address in a couple of slides as well. Because this is a statewide effort, I know that they've mentioned, Paul mentioned yesterday, Paul Toops talked about going across the state, and that really is time consuming. There's a lot of options across the state in different areas that can help you get prepared outside of utilizing us as well. So we've got a lot of yearly practicing. We've got some quarterly, which is amazing. And then we've definitely got some people that haven't practiced it yet. So after this, you'll have a good head start in creating those plans to practice. This is the last section of our presentation, and it goes over some of the things that you need to take into account when you're creating this plan. There's some general tasks that need to be done every single time. Dr. Hoyt has worked a lot, especially in the medical field, mirroring this on a code blue in a hospital. Those are effective because it's practice. Everyone has their assigned duties. There's no confusion. And a lot of times people might be those bystanders that are like, well, I don't know what's going on. But in this situation, everybody has their responsibilities, knows what to do, so you can have the best outcomes possible. So
absolutely. And
this
I'll
is
also
our
highlight
Ready program. So you're
okay. No, I was just going to say, Sarah Jane, that we're going to go through Ready, but we highly encourage you to participate and do the online Ready program, which goes into much more detail and will walk you through how specifically to go through all the nuances of creating your school's medical emergency response plan and team. So we are going to go through this, but please know that the online course that you have access to take is more detailed and will allow you to create really your school's customized plan.
This is very high level, and in the Ready program, there's education that you can take for specific medical conditions, especially because that's not something we can cover in this short amount of time. So check it out. It is a free program. And
yeah, so people asking in the chat about where can you get trained within Ready, we actually list out for different medical conditions, whether it's bleeding, anaphylaxis, whatever it is, what trainings are available for you to take.
So this is the internal problem that we talked about earlier that's with the Ready program. So this helps you. Every school is different. So it's hard to have those plans that you see for everything because it might not apply to you. You can have 70 something schools or 5 schools, or you're administrator for one small school. So there's a lot of different things, and it'll help you stay ready and have tools to keep updated. Because this does need to be addressed every year. Students change, staff change, so it should be something you look at least yearly. We recommend quarterly. So this is the Medi Ready. It's got the recipe. I call it recipe. I know that Dr. Hoyt might call it something else. It's being able to recognize the medical emergency and then the steps to go along with it. And a lot of this needs to happen at the same time. So you need to have that team to do things at the exact same time. Because in medical emergencies, especially with cardiac arrest, time is of the essence, seconds matter. So making sure everybody has what they need is really important.
Yeah, and I'll interrupt you for a second, Sarah Jane, because I just want to go through this. This is the algorithm by which you can help keep your students as safe as possible and have the best possible outcome when they're having a medical emergency. You first have to be able to recognize that a medical emergency is happening. There have been deaths from asthma because a teacher or somebody at the school did not recognize that this was a medical emergency and permitted the child to then walk across campus to the nurse's office, but the child did not make it because the child was having a severe asthma attack and died. So we have to be able to first recognize that a medical emergency is occurring and then be able to activate your medical emergency response protocol in your team while you're also promptly treating. So as soon as you hear, in the case of a child who has passed out or who has just collapsed, like the case of Claire, you are immediately grabbing your AED and immediately going to that child. Ideally, you're grabbing your go bag, which has an AED, has epi, has naloxone, has albuterol, has everything that you need, has your stop the bleed. It's basically your code cart, right? You're grabbing your go bag and you're going to the medical emergency while you're also able to activate your team. And in Medi Ready, we go through great ways to actually activate the medical emergency response plan and team. And you're treating that person as promptly as possible while your team is getting there, supporting that child until emergency medical services is there, and how you're actually able to respond appropriately and provide the best possible care to that child. You are the first responder is through these different trainings, is through anaphylaxis education, is through sudden cardiac arrest education, stop the bleed, asthma, all of these things. And I hope that you guys can kind of see now why, when we went to the legislature with the updated law we wanted to have, it was really because those are the needs that our schools have, and our schools need to be prepared to respond to medical emergencies. So I'll pass it back to you, Sarah Jane, but I like to walk through the recipe, as you call it, and make sure that if we're not recognizing that a medical emergency is occurring, then we're not ultimately going to be able to care for that student.
And this is one thing, I steal the phrase that I heard Travis Thompson use, probably my first education conference. He calls the staff immediate responders. You need to be the one to recognize the emergency, whether it's an intruder, a medical emergency. Staff is immediate. You don't have to be able to fix the problem, but you have to know that it's there. And I see that Susan in the chat beat me to this. Because acquiring the medications and devices can be kind of confusing. It might be cost prohibitive at times, but there are ways to help bring that down, to get them for free in some situations. So these are ways to get the devices. You can do for AEDs, online distributors especially, and grant programs can help you bring down the cost or get more additional ones. Stock epinephrine, Susan already pointed out, EpiPen for schools gives you the ability to get free epinephrine auto injectors for every school in your district or just your school. Depending on, you can get the adult doses, the EpiPen juniors. And if you need more than that, there are also medical purchasing solutions that you can get these devices for online. All of these are for private and public schools. That's where the students are, so it shouldn't matter. With stock albuterol, online distributors, and a lot of this we do say online because with stock medications, Your local CVS and Walgreens are not going to know how to handle that. So online distributors really are the way to go because they're the people that deal with this all the time. Stop the Bleed kits, you can get them from Stop the Bleed, online distributors. Amazon also has that. Naloxone. With this one, because it is available in your local CVS, they don't require prescriptions at this time. You can just go get it. You can get it from online distributors, community organizations. I know that local health departments have this as well, and they're working for other organizations across the state to have this available for naloxone. So does anyone have any questions on acquiring this? I'd recommend screenshotting this. You can also reach out to us at the end if you have specific needs about where to get devices as well.
Yes, this is something we're well versed
So get
in.
educated. A big one. So there's there is a difference between being educated on something and yeah. So, and a big part of that is you've got the education and training and hands-on, especially with CPR and AED uses, helps you feel comfortable with it. So you've got us to help you get all of the education that you need and some of that training, but there are really awesome organizations across the state, like the Louisiana Emergency Response Network, which is LEARN. They have local responders, and they have medical people that work with them across the state in different districts that can help you get that hands-on training. The Louisiana Firemen's Foundation and Louisiana's Project Adam, which is focused specifically on cardiac preparedness for campuses. And they go and help you figure out how many AEDs that you need on your campus and really go through the nitty-gritty of a cardiac response plan. They're fantastic, and we do work with them. And this is all of what training should really cover is how to recognize the emergency, how to utilize the medication or device, how to store the medication and device, and then with everything, call emergency responders. So the next little section of this, we're going to quickly go over some of the parts of Medi Ready and to get you thinking on what this should look like on your campus and kind of where your gaps are already. So this is creating your team, and Dr. Hoyt has really narrowed this down to 11 tasks that really should be thought of during a medical emergency on your campus. Through successful and unsuccessful responses, these are the things that you could see or not see and really see where your gaps might be. And there are different categories, so you can see where your gaps might be especially. And since every school is different, these can be teams of 3 people in every building. It could be 11 people. It could be 11 people in every building. It's really looking at how you can create it to make sure it's as safe as possible and as effective as possible, that this team has effective communication. And there are also non-medical tasks on here because not everybody wants to be involved with that, especially if you don't have a school nurse. So there are ways for everyone, even people not on campus, to be involved.
Yes, I want to really underscore that here you see on your screen the 12 tasks that if you complete these tasks effectively, you're going to have the most successful outcome possible. And you'll see absolutely the first task is to activate your medical emergency response team. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a school and they have a beautiful plan, but then I say, okay, how do you activate it? And they're like, oh, well, it comes from the office. I was like, okay, but if you're having the medical emergency in the gym, how do you tell the office that there's a medical emergency? And are you calling the phone, or is it a PA, or is it a walkie, or what the situation is? And that's when you really get into the weeds. And that's why in our Medi Ready program, we have a whole section on doing drills so that you are really running through this as real time as possible so that you're identifying the what ifs. Yeah, there you go, Sarah Jade. And then at the bottom of this, you see the time to activation. Y'all, this can be done, like you can respond to a medical emergency in under a minute. We see it happen, especially when you have a plan in place. And that's exactly what our students need. We don't need students suffering because we're not prepared. So absolutely, your goal should be well under a minute, having somebody caring for that child promptly.
And this is a big one. I know that coming up, Mark Benton is talking about the Rave panic button, which is something to have on campus. activation is really the biggest part of it, and why this program really became a part of what we do, because you can have all of the devices that you need, but if no one knows how to activate they're going to sit somewhere and it's not as helpful or effective as they should be.
Yes, and I will share a sad case in California where a student died and of cardiac arrest, and 911 had been called, but 911 asked, do you have an AED? And they said no. Well, actually, there was an AED at that school, but people didn't know about it. And so you have to know that these tools are there. You have to know how to use them, and you have to have a team in place. Like, we totally recognize that the concept of having every single staff member trained on how exactly to use all of these devices is really not realistic. And that's why we recommend having a core team that practices this, that is trained on these. It is absolutely feasible to do that. And we don't want any schools, any families dealing with what they then had to go through in California, which also ended in a lawsuit with the school. The tides have turned to where schools must err on the side of caution, meaning being prepared and trying to help students if they're having a medical emergency, as opposed to 10, 15 years ago when it was more, oh, well, we're afraid to have an EpiPen on campus in case we don't use it correctly. The tide has turned, and we have to work to be as prepared as we reasonably can to take care of our children.
So with that, with any medical emergency, outside of a school nurse, school staff they're not medically trained. You're trained to recognize that emergency and be that immediate responder. But in every situation, you need first responders. So you need to be able to call EMS very quickly and get them to your site. A lot of campuses, especially when you're having all of these security updates, might require a fob or a key card to get indoors, and they don't typically have those. So ensuring that someone is ready to have the doors open for them to get them to where they need to go as quickly as possible is important. And I know that Dr. Hoyt uses the phrase having them turn the rig around. EMS would rather get there and not be needed than be late to when they were. So a lot of times, especially in rural areas, you want to get them started to getting to you before you realize you might not need them, or they get there and see that as well. So calling 911, activating that is really important. That should go along with activating your team.
And I'll also say that we should not rely on EMS to carry all the medications that, I mean, we want to, right? In a perfect world, we want EMS to have everything we could possibly need to help save a student's life. But in the real world, that is not necessarily the case. They might, the unit that's responding might not have an epinephrine auto injector. And so it's very important that schools, whenever possible, especially our more rural schools, have the medications, the stock medications necessary to help give that child the best possible outcome. I know we're running up against time, Sarah Jane, so I'm going to try not to.
Yeah, we're doing great, actually.
Okay.
So the next parts of this is caring for the student. That's what we've addressed a lot throughout previously in this webinar, because this is the part where you have those trained staff, you have what you need, and you have the people ready to administer the care and take care of them. So we can kind of skip over this, since this is essentially what the previous part of the presentation has been about. So once you've got that, you also need to document what's going on. When you're calling EMS, especially with epinephrine or shocks, they need to know when medication or when the device was used so they can make decisions for continuing care. And then it's also, you've got the supporting the team leader, supporting the school nurse, or whoever is taking the lead on that. They might need something and not be able to go get it because they're providing that care or they're leading the situation. So just always having that backup to support, or somebody, if they get incapacitated, to really provide and step up in
Yeah,
those
and you'll
situations.
see documenting medical care, notifying family, managing mass movement. These things have really nothing to do with administering any sort of healthcare support. It's really just logistics and management of students, which is what educators do every day. So there really is a place for everybody. on the medical team. This doesn't just need to be the healthcare inclined folks.
And another big one, especially when it comes to like high schools where everybody has a phone and starts talking, you need to be able to quickly let the families know of who's ever impacted by this medical emergency. If you're having an allergy emergency that we had to use the stock epinephrine, you need to be able to communicate quickly to them, but still be able to focus on the care, and then communicate with remote team members or external communication. Being able to shoot out a message to your parents, to even on Facebook, to be like, hey, medical emergency on campus, it's handled, like, no need to worry. Those are the kind of things, because everybody's texting or whatever they're doing at this point, being able to manage that situation easily and effectively is really important. And they're great tools that you can utilize to help keep everybody calm, because you've got this practice team. They know what they're doing. They're getting everybody that they need to get involved, and you won't have anybody extra or deal with parents trying to pick up or anything like that.
Sarah Jane, there's a
then
question in the chat.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's a question there about
No worries.
stock meds and the response plan.
Let's see. So the new laws require medical director for stock meds. No, you do not need a medical director for these stock meds. And the new stock medications are not required themselves. It allows you to have it, but it's not requiring anything, especially because this might not be the most, they're not always free. So it's not asking for anybody to do anything that they don't need, like that they don't want to do or can't effectively do at this time. But it's there if you need it. And then with school-based health centers, we've talked with Faith Boudreaux, who I know is in that department. School-based health centers are part of the school, but not part of the school. The school nurse is the person that really needs to be that lead, but the school-based health centers might have more resources, but they're not the stock medications that you need to deal with. They're dealing with diagnosing and other care things, as opposed to these stock medications in emergency response, depending on your relationship with them. And they're typically not employed by the school. So there's blurred lines, but there are some clear defined things with them. I would recommend including them in your plans because they have other medical professionals, but because they're not actually part of your school, it just kind of depends on your relationship on how you can make those decisions. But you need to have one without them because they might be closed that day or something like that, because they're not actually part of your school plan to move without them. And our last little section that we're going to go over is managing students, especially like in this situation with Claire, a situation I know that was talked about yesterday. There's always other students involved. And in big medical situations, like where the AED is being pulled out, the kids that are around that situation need to be removed for their own safety, for their own health. But they're also kids. They need to have supervision. So it's really working through how you do that, and ensuring that they're safe while everybody's caring for the impacted person, and then also managing that mass movement. I know that part of the new legislation is having drills during dismissal times or times of like pickup or during class changing. Having things like that, being able to assess how you can stop that to ensure that EMS can get to where they need to be is really important, and how you can talk through that in creating those plans.
Yeah, and we get really in the weeds with all of this in the MediReady workbook, that when you take the course online, it's videos that lead you through the workbook, like really in the weeds, and applying other protocols you already have in place, your fire drills, your intruder alerts. So you're not totally recreating the wheel here, but absolutely managing those students, and also to protect the privacy of the student who is having that medical emergency.
Mm-hmm. So we're now at the end of this. I know we've got some questions going through. And I did have Sylvia message me. I would like you to email me specifically with your questions, because that's a little bit nitty gritty. But then, so this is the end. We want to definitely thank everybody for all the help that we get from across the country to help do this, and especially the Department of Ed. We want to keep the chat open because there are a lot of questions with this. The QR code, and I saw Elizabeth also put the direct link in the chat, that it'll take you to where a lot of these links are, and then it'll also give you our contact information if you have specific questions. We do recommend that you sign up for MediReady. It's free. And then we also, if you're an admin, if you have school nurses, if you are a school nurse supervisor, we do have some specific courses that go along with this for school nurses, especially those, some of them, they have contact hours, so you can get that needed education that's really important, but you're helping create a safer space for your students. Yeah, and then Susan brought up school nurses need a current CPR card. With the organizations that we mentioned earlier, Learn, Fireman's Foundation, Project Adam, with the CPR, there is education versus certification. A lot of times you can get trained for free, but that certification will cost money because the Red Cross or the AHA, the American Heart Association, does need that. So just as you're looking for that.
But the law doesn't state you have to have that everybody at your school has to have a Red Cross card or anything like that. They just have to be educated. So really the laws here in Louisiana, as Mike said, I've worked at a few places. I'm from Slidell, but I was happy to come back to Louisiana. But really, Louisiana has taken a lead in empowering schools to be prepared for medical emergencies. So just want to thank you guys so much for having us today. And thank you all for all the work you're doing to help keep our students, our children safe.
And one thing of note that is not part of the school legislation, for the schools and organizations that have early child care centers, there's actually a partner law, mirror law, something that addresses getting all of this and all of these medications and all of these trainings available for early learning centers. Because that is different, it's not part of the K through 12 legislation. There is one that can be addressed for early learning.
And camps and restaurants and all the things. So really it's excellent legislation to empower our communities to be safer.
Yeah, so we want to make sure no matter where someone is, they can be allowed to, somebody can help them with this emergency medication. Because they're so easy to learn how to use and safe to use if it's not for you in those situations, like an AED is not going to shock you if you don't need it. So it's extremely safe to use in situations. So it's one of those things, like there's no reason not to be prepared, and we want to make sure that you can get there.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can, Mike, if there's no more questions, you can kind of take over. But if you use that QR code or that link, you'll get the links to all the legislation, our trainings, other things that you can get, and you'll be able to get our contact information so you can reach out with specifics. Let's see, Trudy, I know they provided it a little bit ago, but I will provide it again for this last link. Let's see. Ooh, there we go.
There you are. Thank you, ladies. I know there were lots of questions in the chat, and I think you probably captured them all, but just in case, did anybody not have a question answered that you need to come off of mute or ask it again? Please go ahead. Well, I think you got it, ladies.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
you should see an evaluation for this session as well in the chat. Dr. Hoyt, Sarah Jane, really appreciate the passion for the work. I know you've helped us out a great deal. Enjoy working with you, and glad that you were here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to make our schools safer for our children. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. All right, we're going to take a brief break to get ready for the next session. So give us a moment and we'll be right back on.
Yeah, let me see if I can wrap this up.
Well, we just started on.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. The School Safety Act of 2023 requires by April 1st of this year, each city, state, or other local school board to implement the use of a panic emergency notification system and/or other system of equal or exceeding capability. GOSEP and the Center for Safe Schools now offers the RAVE panic button to all K-12 school systems and schools across the state, as well as a companion application for 911 centers. As we have for the past two safety summits, we welcome Mark Benton to offer this session on the RAVE panic button. Mark has 34 years of experience as a first responder, is a retired state law enforcement officer, has served as a parish Homeland Security Director, and has worked for the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Planning, GOSEP. Mark has been employed with RAVE Mobile Safety for approximately 5 years and is the State Director for the RAVE Panic Button Initiative. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure being here. I appreciate you having me. So, Mike, are y'all able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you allowing me to come in and speak with you today. It's always a pleasure. And I got to tell you, these school summits are fantastic. It gives us a chance to share and learn so much. It really helps us to move forward with the efforts that we have here in the state. So again, as Mike mentioned, I'm the state director for Panic Button here in Louisiana. I'm going to start out by showing a screen that here, as you see, with my contact information. Please take a moment and jot that down. If you're having trouble seeing, my email address is mark.benton@motorolasolutions.com. Again, that's mark.benton, B-E-N-T-O-N, @motorolasolutions.com. And my phone number is going to be area code 225-422-9799. Once again, 225-422-9799. Now, the reason I mention that is that I am here to work with you. I will act as a direct liaison between you on the school and district level, even on the individual level if needed, as well as working with the state to help enact or get this project moving forward a little bit more. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Panic Button. What is Panic Button? Quite simply, Panic Button is a mobile instant response app. It's designed to notify staff and first responders of an emergency. It's done so to get the information out as quickly as possible and to get first responders on the scene as quick as they can be or as fast as possible, as well as giving them more information that they need, vital information that they can utilize en route. This system is basically in three components, and I realize that many of you are already familiarized yourself or have been familiar with it, but there are a few of you maybe that are new to the idea, and we want to make sure that everybody's made clear of it. This system, RAVE Panic Button, is basically in three components. The first component, the one that most people are more familiar with, is the app that's installed on the phone. We have the users. This is, again, for faculty and staff only. This is not designed for the public. It's not designed for students. This is for faculty and staff. It allows you to be able to receive and send notifications in the event of some type of emergency. The app is installed on the phone. The second part of it is a profile that's built within the computer system of your own school. This profile is where all the vital information is added, all the contact information for faculty and staff, specifics like geofencing the campus, geofencing individual structures, adding information about this school, about the campus, and about the structures as well. This helps to give the first responders as much information as they can get as quickly as they can so that they can help serve you a whole lot faster. The third part of this program or system, if you will, resides within the 911 center itself. It's called RAVE Command View, and it allows them to receive all the information that the schools have added into the system so that they have everything from descriptions of the buildings, even floor plans of individual buildings, so that they have the best information possible and can respond as quickly as possible on it. So I just wanted to take a minute or two and explain that to you. Here we show a picture of what the app would look like on a smartphone. It's a series of 5 large buttons and several smaller buttons on the bottom. To activate the system, you simply choose the emergency that's most closely relates to the type of emergency you have and press and hold it. You'll press the button and hold it for 1.5 seconds. Now, immediately upon pressing the button, a series of 3 messages go out. You're going to get an app notification. You're going to get a text. You're going to need an email. These modes of communication is going to all give you the same basic information. It's going to tell you what the emergency is, where it's located at on campus, and who activated the button. And with this information, it helps you to respond within the campus itself. And as Sarah Jane mentioned earlier, immediate responders. Faculty and staff on the campus are our immediate responders, as it's already been discussed. And it's going to give you the opportunity to be able to help respond to and handle that situation best you possibly can until first responders get on the scene. Again, I mentioned holding the button for 1.5 seconds. If I continue to hold the button, as I press it, you'll see that on the screen, a sweep hand effect will appear on it. After 1.5 seconds, it's going to ask you if you're sure that you want to notify 911. This is just a safety feature to help prevent accidental activations. If you click yes, of course, it will connect you just as if you had dialed 911. You'll be able to speak to that 911 dispatcher. You'll be able to explain to them more precisely and answer the questions that they have for you to help respond. So it's really a cool tool, but it's very much more versatile, as we're going to touch on as we move forward here. But again, the focus on what we'd like to talk a little bit today is many schools in the state, districts in the state, have already opted into or signed up for a panic button. However, for one reason or another, they may not have completed the process that will allow them to utilize the app to the best of their ability. So we want to kind of touch on some of this and maybe help you to move forward in trying to get the program up and running. Again, it's so important to be able to complete this profile that allows us to add this information. So the screen we're looking at right now shows you the first page that you would look at on your profile. It's the information page, the basic information for your campus, for your district. You'll notice, and if you, it's a little hard to see in this screen, but if you've opened up the app on your own computer, you'll notice on the left-hand side is all basic information for your campus. Anything, and this is important, that anything that has a red asterisk, each field that has a red asterisk to the right of it, red or orange asterisk, it's mandatory. This information has to be filled out. When you opted into the program, I helped to build out the profile for your campus to at least get you started on it. I usually fill out most of the basic information. I also tell you in the training that the information to the right, the fields to the right, don't have the asterisks on them. This is ancillary information. It doesn't have to be filled out immediately for the app to be able to work. However, it does provide vital information to the 911 centers and first responders as to what they might need to know about when responding to an emergency on your campus. Some of the information you'll look at in the very first one is number of occupants. Seems a little bit ambiguous at first, but you think about it from a first responder standpoint, emergency management standpoint, knowing how many people are on that campus, or more granular, how many people are in that specific building or location or structure that you've activated the emergency for, can be very important to us. It can tell us, first off, how many buses we might need to evacuate to get those faculty and students off campus or away from that danger area. We may need to know this information as to how many law enforcement officers we need to vet the students that are evacuating from this area, because it's not uncommon that a bad guy will hide among faculty and students to try to avoid detection or apprehension. And unfortunately, in a worst case scenario, if we have injuries, knowing the number of occupants is going to tell us ahead of time how many first responders, how many medical personnel, ambulances, and so forth that we need to get on scene to be able to triage. Some of the other information they'll have is fire alarm company information, security alarm companies, gates and access codes, property owner contact information, and so forth. This is information, again, that does not have to be added immediately. However, it's vital for the 911 centers, and I strongly suggest you take in a few moments. You can come back at any point in time, and that's the important thing about this app. It's a living document. It's a living entity, if you will. You can come back and add or modify information at any time as needed. So we talked a little bit about geofencing the structures on campus. I have geofenced the campuses for you, and you'll notice the green area in this satellite photo is the campus itself. That's the bit of the basis on how this system works. If you're outside the geofenced area, you don't have full functionality. So that if you've something occurs within the geofenced area, within the shaded area, you have full functionality. And it's designed, again, to prevent accidental notifications or someone inadvertently causing confusion in the situation. Well, we ask you to come in and geofence the individual structures. Now, you'll see in the app it says buildings, but we actually mean any kind of structure. Playgrounds, ball fields, parking lots, anywhere that you're going to have people gathering. We'll ask you to come in and geofence that, so that instead of saying that it's an emergency at a certain school, it'll now say emergency at a certain school at a specific locations. For instance, Lafayette High School, if you will, I'm so sorry, Lafayette High School, in the cafeteria, we have a medical emergency. So this helps to get first responders to the scene a lot quicker. And bear in mind, many of your campuses are pretty darn large. And for a first responder to try to clear that area or find a emergency on an unspecified site within that campus may take time that you really don't have. In addition, if it's a critical situation like active shooter or active aggressor on campus, you're not just going to have your local SROs and local law enforcement that are responding. You're going to have agencies coming on the municipal level, neighboring communities. You're going to have neighboring parishes. You'll have state response. You'll actually even have federal response in some cases. So you're going to have a lot of people that may be coming into that site that aren't familiar with your campus, aren't familiar with the area. And being able to get a little more granular and geofence individual structures help us to be able to get help there as quickly as possible. And this is going to be a big one. We talk about updating users. Now, we realize that faculty and staff are a very dynamic situation in many schools. You have faculty members that are going to different campuses. Maybe they're going into different positions. They were an educator last year. Now this year they're assistant principal or principal, or maybe they retired. So one of the bigger aspects of this is to maintain your roster, to make sure that you've got people, users that are able to activate, that are able to receive the information, that they're receiving information from the correct groups. Miss Sarah Jane and Dr. Hart talked a while ago about medical response. An excellent presentation. Very important, something that we really need to work at getting better on some of these skill set. And you may have people that are part of these medical teams that need to have this information. You can designate what messages are sent and to who within the profile. So it allows you, if you have a medical response team, you can have them receive the messages, and some of the personnel that may not necessarily need to do so will not receive it. So it allows you to modify and support your faculty and staff. Bearing in mind, adding a new person individually to this profile is done in less than a minute. To remove someone is even quicker than that. It's unchecking a box or clicking a little garbage can icon. But it doesn't have to be done every day. It can be done on a weekly, monthly, by semester, or even by year. It's up to you on how you do it, but maintain your list of personnel. And bear in mind as well, you may have people that have changed phones, they've changed their email addresses, Their names may have changed. They may have gotten married and their name changed. This needs to be updated and supported, but it's very easily done. The system is very, very intuitive, and it doesn't take long to do it all, I can assure you. But update your users as much as possible. Floor plans are another area that we commonly see. These floor plans are very, very important to our first responders, whether it be fire, police, and even medical, to be able to know how these buildings are laid out, how these structures are laid out on your campus. Now, understand, this does not have to be an architectural draft or an architectural drawing. It can be, I've seen them on ruled paper with a pencil. You know, they drew out, being able to show where the doors are at, being able to show where the walls are at, fire extinguishers, AEDs, and so forth are very important. You can take one of the evacuation charts off the wall in your building, scan them in, save them as a PFD, and they can be uploaded, or excuse me, PDF, and they can be uploaded into the system very quickly. So I strongly recommend that you upload floor plans if at all possible for your campuses. And again, as things change, you may add an addition onto one of your buildings. You may configure one of your structures. When that information is updated, update the floor plans that go along with it. It's a tremendous help. And incidentally, on any of this, and I'll mention it again at the end of the presentation, if you have questions or concerns, you're a little confused on how to go about doing this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to try to help you and walk you through it. Submitting profiles to 911 centers. You do this work, you build a profile. There's going to be a section here that allows you to submit this information to your local 911 center so that they can receive this information. You only have to do this once. Once you click on it, any modifications or changes you make to the profile will automatically update for the 911 center. But one of the common questions I have, and again, the slide makes it a little bit hard to see, but on the bottom, you'll see that in this list of 911 centers is the Louisiana State Police. I need to explain that to you. The Louisiana State Police Analytical Fusion Center act as a backup to all the 911 centers in the state. They're there so that if there's an emergency, just for an example, the hurricane that just came through, Hurricane Beryl, or maybe a tornadic event occurs, where not only a school has been impacted, but maybe the 911 center as well. If alerts start going out, if the state is aware that there has been damage to that 911 center, they will monitor and make sure that the information is getting handled and the proper response is taking place. In addition to that, if there's something large scale like an active shooter, the 911 centers are going to be very, very busy. The state police can look over their shoulder a little bit, so to speak, and see that, well, we might need extra resources. We may need extra law enforcement or medical personnel, and they can coordinate with GOSEP to help make sure that those resources are available when the 911 center requests it. So please, yes, submit profiles to both your local 911 center and to the state police as well. And it's simply done by just clicking a button to submit. Guys, I go through this information to explain to you that we're part of a whole community our stakeholder approach to planning in preparing for emergencies. We have to learn that when we're utilizing this, we're sharing these capabilities to be able to make sure that our responses are a little bit more effective in what we're doing. The rave panic button should be considered a very vital portion of your school's emergency operation plan. And in addition to that, it should be tested and utilized. Staff Assist is one of the tools that you have within Panic Button that allows non-emergency communications within the campus or actually within the district. You can share information district-wide if necessary. It allows administrators, faculty, and staff to communicate back and forth with each other, to share information or to request assistance on a non-emergency basis. It's also a great, great tool for drills and exercises. Again, as Ms. Sarah Jane and Dr. Hart mentioned earlier, your medical response teams, you have to drill with that. We want to make sure that it's done on a regular basis. You want to make sure that you're notifying the right people Staff Assist will help you to do that. You can utilize it. One of the other things that is really that's not reflected in the slide here that's pretty cool. Anytime you activate Staff Assist or any of the features of Panic Button, it is recorded or archived within the system itself. So if I need to come back later and look at this activation, it'll actually show you a pin drop, a satellite photo of your campus, a pin drop on where the activation occurred. It gives you times, dates, even can go in and see who was notified and by what modality. They were notified by email, by text, by in-app notification, and so forth. So it can actually be utilized to archive what took place and can be used as an after action tool to make sure that we've done the best that we possibly can for our faculty and students. But make this app part of your emergency operation plan and practice it. Make sure that we get the information done. By geofencing both the campus and the individual structures, again, faculty, staff, and first responders have the best tool that they can to be able to see this. And it's really interesting. This app will allow this map, this floor plan, if you will, to be forwarded to first responders from the 911 center. The 911 center can open up the view in Rave Command View, see the floor plan, and actually forward it to first responders before they get on the scene, as long as they have a smartphone, a mobile data terminal, laptop, so forth. So first responders are en route to the scene. They can best prepare how they want to make their entry or where they want to bring their equipment to be able to help resolve this problem as quickly as possible. Providing as much information as you can in that profile, again, gives that 911 center and the first responders better tools to be able to solve the issues that may have arisen. So in closing, and I realize I've rushed a little bit, this is very short. I want to make sure that I've shared as much information as I can, but I also want to make sure that you know to reach out to me if at any point in time I can be of assistance. What are some of the things we can do? Utilize Panic Button to conduct drills and exercises. Of course, I just touched on that. Develop a relationship with your 911 center. Guys, this is imperative, okay? You don't know how many schools I talk to say, look, have any of you ever talked to your 911 center from campus? No. Have you ever described or had any type of conversation with your 911 centers? No. They need to know what's going on. Remember, a 911 dispatcher is looking at the world through a soda straw, so to speak. The only information they have is what's coming through by phone or by computer terminal. They need to know a little bit more about it. When you get ready to do your drills and exercises, certainly you can do an internal drill utilizing Staff Assist, but I strongly recommend at least once a year that you do a full activation where you press one of the 5 big buttons on the main screen. Call the 911 center ahead of time on their non-emergency number. Talk to them. Let them know, what you're fixing to do. Make sure that they're involved because it allows them to test their side of the system as well. Get familiar with your first responders. Yes, many schools in the state have SROs, but not all of them. Get to know your first responders. Bring them in. Let them have an active part in your planning for your emergency response, especially drills and exercises. Heck, it's cheap. Bring them in, invite them to eat lunch in the cafeteria one day, whatever it takes. Let them do a walkthrough. You know that the fire departments come in and do walkthroughs for fire safety in your schools. Bring first responders in as well, or law enforcement in as well. Let them be able to get more familiar with your campuses. Again, utilize Staff Assist on a non-emergency basis. You can use it as a backup to your PA systems, or in some cases, we have schools that have gone away from their PA systems and go straight to Staff Assist. You'll find that there are 1,000 different ways you can use it. Everything from, bathroom that's not working properly that needs to be closed and doesn't want anybody in, or to any different way you can imagine on it. Visit that profile within Rave facilities frequently to make sure that the information is updated. Usually anytime you want to do your safety drills beforehand, visit that profile to make sure that everything is up and running. And maintain your emergency operation plan. I know that that's something that Travis has preached about, and that's one of my pet peeves as well. understand that emergency operation plan is a handbook or guidance on how you're going to be able to respond to this emergency. Uh, Sarah Jane while ago made a comment about your emergency not having the proper access tools to be able to get into a site. How are you going to activate this emergency plan? Well, that's done out of the office. Well, what happens if the office is unable to do so, or that principal or assistant principal or administrator from the office is not available, or maybe they're the problem, maybe they're the person that's in trouble. The emergency operation plan is that tool that helps to walk you through it, and it has to be updated and maintained. Again, it is a living document as well. So, and finally, in closing, before I open for questions, I will say one thing: plan, practice, and be prepared. Okay, you're going to hear that throughout this whole summit, or have heard it many times throughout the summit. Let's plan for our emergencies. Let's practice how we're going to respond, and let's be proactive. Let's make sure we've got everything in place before. And it again ties into our previous presenter. They're talking about, your medical emergencies. Be prepared. Be proactive. Don't be reactive when it comes to these type of circumstances. Okay. Again, I appreciate your time. I realize it was short. If I can speak with anyone later, if there's anything I can do to help anyone, I would be more than happy to do so. You see my contact information again on here. I stand ready to assist, and I thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to talk with you. Mr. Gummo, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark. There's a question in the chat. Is Caddo Parish 911 system using Rave? I'm not sure if you know that off the top of your head.
No, currently Caddo is not. Now we have several charter and faith-based schools that are within the parish, but as a district, they are not. I think they have another product that they're utilizing, but I do have several schools within Caddo Parish that are using it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much.
Any other questions before Mark goes? All right, Mark, thank you again for being with us. And I would encourage any of you out there that are listening that if you have not activated Rave or updated your profile, or do not have some sort of panic button system, that you get that done as quickly as possible. Mark is always available to assist if you are having issues with activating Rave. So Mark, again, thank you so much for your continued diligence to work with us. I appreciate you being here. There's likely an evaluation in the chat for everybody for Mark's session. And if there's no further questions, we'll pause for a minute before we go to the next session. Thanks again, Mark.
Thanks so much, Mr. Gummo. It's a pleasure as usual.
Welcome back, everyone. Like RAVE, the School Safety Act requires an anonymous reporting system that allows for the reporting of threats of violence toward any student or other person or any school or facility through a phone application and an internet website. The requirement also includes a memorandum of understanding that provides for the proper usage of the information reported. Like Mark from RAVE, we are pleased to welcome Darlene Costanza with Crime Stoppers for her third year at the Safety Summit. Darlene has served for the past 30 years as the president and CEO of the nonprofit Crime Stoppers of the Greater New Orleans metropolitan area and the surrounding river parishes. The Crime Stoppers organization has worked under her direction to become proactive in providing crime prevention information to the community, specifically to our youth. In 2020, Crime Stoppers expanded its student anonymous reporting and educational program, Safe Schools Louisiana, statewide under an agreement with the Louisiana State Police. As of June 2024, 643 schools statewide are active on the anonymous reporting app, and 40 public school districts plus parochial schools have received training with their educational presentations. She has earned an excellent reputation within the law enforcement arena, both on a federal, state, and local level, and is considered a go-to person to facilitate change. Under Darlene's leadership, Crime Stoppers has more than doubled its call volume and crime solved, and expanded its community hotline operations in 9 parishes, with Crime Stoppers GNO being called upon as a best practice organization. Since their inception, tipsters have solved over 19,000 felonies, with over $2.8 million paid in cash awards. Darlene, using her counseling degree, also serves as an advocate for crime victims' families, lending her expertise to help them through their traumatic events. As the agency spokeswoman, she has become a crime and community outreach expert. She's a regular guest on television stations and media outlets. Welcome back, Darlene.
Thank you very much. All right, are we able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much again for allowing me to be part of today's presentations. I would love to know if there was a way, how many of you guys and ladies are users of the anonymous reporting, Safe Schools Louisiana anonymous reporting. Maybe you can just put something in the chat. Yes, we're using it. Because I really wanted to make sure these 30 minutes were geared to what the audience wants. If you're brand new and you have never used us or don't know anything about the Safe Schools Louisiana anonymous reporting app, you're going to see some basic steps in here that's going to help you to be able to onboard with us, which we've had 3 new systems on board just this week. But I really want to know from those who are using you how we can be better for you. So hopefully you will send some questions in and let us know what's your, the pressing point for you. But anyway, with Crime Stoppers, everything comes to you pretty much turnkey. And we have a promotions that we provide.
Made for you. It's you and your friends to say what you know without telling who you are. Upload tips, issues, and concerns. Fight bullying, drugs, weapons, and self-harm. Share video and photos. It's quick and easy to use. So, download the free Safe School Louisiana app and say it here. Say it here.
So for Crime Stoppers, we're here talking about an app, obviously, and we say an app, for years we have been in the safe schools business. We actually started in 2000 actually in New Orleans, and it was a hotline back in the day. And what we've learned over the many, many years of what we're doing is that kids, as we know, they're more comfortable with social media. So we are talking about an app, not a hotline, and we are talking about a browser because a lot of kids are using it through their school browsers or through our Safe Schools Louisiana website. But we are also an answering service. So we're 24/7, we're vetting every single tip. And if you know anything about Crime Stoppers, hopefully you understand that the reason why we've been able to do what we've done for so many years across the United States, actually across the world, is because we are in partnership with law enforcement, and in this instance, in partnership with schools. Our information is protected by privileged information statutes in the state. So we are able to offer a better, I guess, level of security for students or anyone who uses our service because of that relationship. We were mandated, as you've heard multiple times today. I'm going to go real quick through these first slides. But anyway, we are the program, the anonymous reporting program that the state worked with. We first started working with the state police. Now we're with GOSEP. And when you read the legislation, our program is offering all of the levels that it's needed to protect students, protect users of the program, and to help your school system access this anonymous information or these tips from your community. Okay, we use a software called Navigate 360. And I just say that in here because a lot of you are already using possibly other programs that they offer, but we use P3, which is a Crime Stoppers, originally started as a Crime Stoppers tip program. And that is what we're using P3 Campus to fuel our software. It is our software base, and it is something that's in, I think, probably more schools anywhere across the United States. So it is a trusted program, and we have lots of information that can show you, if you're interested in learning about the history of how this program started and the other opportunities that it offers for you. Crime Stoppers, too, just so you understand who we are, we're a local nonprofit. So when you're talking about, people who are there, having our kids in your school systems, there are Crime Stopper programs across the state. And we're here and we're vested in our communities. And I think that makes a huge difference being a not-for-profit, because we're working on a different angle. Our one true service, our one true focus is service. It's service to you. It's service to to our community, our families. It's service to helping the agencies, law enforcement, school systems, whoever it may be, the state of Louisiana, work better together. So that's, I think, something that we offer that's a little bit different, and we're very proud of that. This is an actual tip, and we include 2 tips in this presentation. And again, we're going to go pretty quickly. But this was one of the first tips that we got. My daughter knows that a boy is threatening to shoot people at both a high school and junior high school. He has a hit list. And the actions taken on this tip, just so you understand, is everything comes through Crime Stoppers. We're 24/7 vetting all information. We push the information to the school systems, but we don't just let it sit there. If there is something that is an emergency or something like this that's considered a threat, maybe an act of terrorism, we're going to make sure that it's a real-time notification, that the parent principal or the lead person's notified, and then we follow up to make sure that the disposition has been worked, so that we can say at the end of all of this process that this is how it was handled for the school system. We're also proud that we've been endorsed by the Department of Education. And just briefly on this, I personally have worked with these individuals before they were even with the Department of Education, because they were with our partnering schools. And we've learned from them and they've learned from us. And we're just proud that they're able to recognize the benefit of having anonymous reporting in the school systems, and certainly give us feedback on how it works best for the individual school administration. So we are a turnkey program. We use a multidisciplinary approach. That's critical, because you want to make sure that whoever needs to handle your information is there. So we're going to tell you that to be part of this, we're going to ask you to have a partner with law enforcement. That could be your lead SRO. It could be your local sheriff's department. Most school systems have already a partnership there. But these folks are critical, because if it's an act of terrorism in the middle of the night, if it's a child actively going to commit suicide, we're going to want to have a welfare check. We're going to make sure somebody gets to that home to check for those weapons. That's law enforcement. So you have to have that connection. School administration obviously is the key. Y'all run this. You own the materials. You run this program. You set up your teams with us. You tell us who to contact. So you're controlling the process. And then last but not least, we're asking to have someone from the mental health side as part of that team. Because if we get a suicide threat, or if we get a student reporting self-harm, we want to make sure that y'all are able to have that information to follow up and, do the services that you need to do for that student. So it is critical. Now I'm going to stop right here and just make sure you understand that we're not the suicide hotline. We talk to students about using the suicide hotline if you're actively, thinking of suicide. That's not our role. But we do have the life safety approach that we can talk to kids and let them know what those services are. And the majority of our tips, and we're getting probably 30% of our tips talking about mental health concerns now, it's coming from a friend. The suicide hotline may not get that, but we're talking to their friends and they're giving us valuable information that you, as a school system, can work and engage with. So back to what we are. We're an app. We're free, obviously, and we also have a Safe Schools website that kids are using the browser. And when we look at how the downloads are happening, it's really a lot of it is coming through the browser. So kids, load the app and then download and then take the apps off their phones. That's typical of what they're doing. We're web-based, so everything's up in the cloud. It's not sitting on your servers in your school. So for security purposes, and we have IT asking questions about that, this is all based, web-based through our parent company for this program, P3 or Navigate 360. Again, we are truly anonymous, so we're not asking or capturing information that's going to identify the users. Now, if there's a suicide threat and it's first person, we're all going to be asking information to try to get to that student right then and there. But the majority of the tips that are not suicide related, they are coming through us anonymously. And again, it's protected by privileged information statutes. So that kind of gives another level of trust from students or community members, families using us because they've already heard about the Crime Stoppers process. We don't require any registration. No student's going to give us their student ID number. We're not running this through a school email server or anything that's related individually to that person or that school. It truly is anonymous. And also, again, we're protected by privileged information statutes. So this is sort of what it looks like. And we asked the students at the schools, when we're doing live presentations and we've already cleared it with the school system, we asked them to go ahead and download the app. So you're going to see the little Safe Schools, little purple and green and yellow. That's the app. And we're going to ask them to download it. And we're going to ask teachers to download it so they see it and they feel comfortable if they want to use that app. And certainly parents. Part of the onboarding process is giving information to you so that you can inform the parents that you're working with in your school. That it's here. This resource is here for you. This is a wonderful opportunity that GOSEP and the state has provided for you. Make use of this. But they will download it and then they will set how they want to have information come back to them, just like with any other app. When they get to the app, it is all a template-driven process. And that's important because kids, you need to kind of lead them, right? So you need to kind of lead them to the path where you're going to get the most information that you as a school system can investigate and use it. So they're going to geolocate to your school. They're going to look for their city or parish. It's going to come to your school. And then it's going to talk about a lot of different issues that they can report on. And this is a campus program, so the language we're using is very specific to school or student issues. And again, all through that process, it's going to push them down, what more information, how much can you give? At the very end, like any tip program through Crime Stoppers, is going to give them a tip number when they submit their tip. And that's really how they respond back to us, by that tip number. I say the number one thing that's most important for kids and they're very excited about is that they can upload photos. So we're getting a lot of, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever used to be Facebook, whatever, they're sending us social media posts, which is so important for you guys to be able to look and see, to capture how critical this information is. And I could say most posts that we get include some type of social media photos or videos. All of that is accessible by you when you're viewing the tips.
Darlene, while you're talking about that, we
Yes.
have a question in the chat. This might be relevant. What do you guys do to deter erroneous reporting since it is anonymous?
Yes. Okay. So what we do, first off, when we're doing a presentation in a school promoting this program, and you're going to be told that you have to show that information, you have to show a video to the students. We've actually developed a script for the principals to use that talks about two things, not around, this is not for spamming. This is not a joke. We take this information very seriously. If somebody is spamming the system, that's misusing the system. You're not going to be protected. The second thing is that it's not for miscellaneous, very low level, we call it bullying. I didn't get invited to the birthday party, or someone, made fun of my clothes today. We have that language for you to use to make sure that they understand this is really meant to be for a serious event. It's meant to be for repeated aggressive, behaviors, not just that one-time bullying incident. And last but not least, Mr. Como, we also provide videos. We have one that's for middle school and one for high school that talks about bullying. And it's all from a kid's perspective. So we have kids, and this is all free. We give you a link to show this. I think it's an 8-minute video for the bullying. And it's other kids talking about what bullying means. And we make sure that those kids talk about, again, this is for serious incidents. Last but not least, though, we do report all tips to you. But if we see something that is completely erroneous, whatever. Star Wars has taken over the world today, blah, blah, blah. That is a spam tip. We will have a communication with you that we won't forward the spam tip because, we're not trying to cause any additional work for our school systems. But there's many instances where, you're going to have to make that decision. So I hope that answered that question. This slide, what we're showing is just that we have two-way dialogue, and this was a suicide threat, and there are life safety processes in this program. That's going to be part of the team we asked you to do, but we're able to have dialogue real time. This was real time with a student talking about someone who was threatening suicide with a friend. So that's incredibly important because as an answering service, we have the opportunity, we have trained staff to do that. So to go live, if you've not joined us yet, you have an MOU to sign with us. There is a tip management team. The MOU is signed by the superintendent or the head of the school system. The tip management team is the district level or the school-wide level team who manages the program with us. So they see all tips. They're going to make sure people respond appropriately. They're going to handle life safety alerts. Everything we do, we provide training. So that tip management team will have online training. It's very easy to do. It's about 12 minutes of online videos, and you can always go back and check if you need to. You're going to have online training to look at that. And once the team is set up, we then ask you to give us the lower level, which is the school teams. So a school only sees their tips. They don't see all of the district tips. We input all of this information, all of the contact information into our computer system for you. So you're not able to do that. At the end of that, we're going to provide you with the marketing materials that you need to be able to promote the program, again, including those videos that you can use to show parents, to train the students and teachers. This is the sign up for the team, administrative teams. And just, we're looking for information to be able to build out that skeleton crew in our software to make sure we have the contact information. But again, the district-wide team does include all of the life safety or emergency actions. This is just a little bit to show you kind of what the inside of the software looks like. We build out that right side, which says recipient information. We're typing all of that in for you. If you need to change it, we can give you the ability to change it, or we can do it for you. And I can tell you right now, we're doing a lot of updates. As y'all know, that schools have changed personnel. So we're correcting all of this for you to make sure that the right people are getting the information. With the training, this is just links to training. Again, it takes less than 12 minutes really to do the trainings. This is your tip management screen. I wanted to show you the dashboard, and it just shows you kind of what you would see as a tip manager. And you have access to any tip that comes to your district. This is a disposition slide. I'm showing you this because this is critical. You need to close out tips. And what does that do? That allows us to gather information that's important to you as a school system to do reports. There are many reports that I know that you need for the state or other grants, for federal grants, and this will provide you that back-end information by completing the dispositions. And we can help run reports for you, or we can give you access to run basic reports. Again, these are additional actions taken because it's going to go through the different steps that you've done as a team. We're not capturing any information that's privileged here. This is strictly generic information for you to be able to show how the actions were used. How was the information used? So I mentioned to you that we have about 30% of our tips that are dealing with some type of mental health issue. This is a tip, an actual tip. I'm in 6th grade. I feel like day by day, I'm getting closer to convincing myself to commit suicide. There was multiple information that they provided there, and they talked about abuse. So I share this, and the team, the school system who handled this did a wonderful job. They handled it immediately. They had counselors talking to that student, got to the family. We had a welfare check done that night, probably saved a life because they responded like they should, quickly to the life safety alerts. And with this, I mean, it's about telling students how they can be an ambassador. It's about making sure that we always have that common ground with our students, that they feel comfortable enough to know that somebody else is looking out for them. So I can't, 30% of the tips, the next question we typically get, well, how often do we get these emergency tips? Very rarely after hours. So rest assured, this is not every day. This is not a once a week occurrence. It's very rare, but know that it's there for you to be able to allow students to realize that there's a safety net that your school's providing, which is an incredible service. when we are, here's the life safety, just so you know that we have a process that one of the team members have to notify us that they've seen a life safety tip before our system will stop sending text messages or eventually calling. So again, nothing could fall through the crack, hopefully, in this system. It's pretty foolproof, and we're overseeing this 24/7 just in case, there is an emergency. Just some of the things that you can see, the counts of the different tips that we're receiving. It's changed. It's changed over the 30 years that I've been involved with Crime Stoppers. It's certainly changed over the last 10 years with the mental health. In addition to what we're providing you with this software, we're also doing things to back it up. I mentioned to you that we had 2 videos on bullying that we would provide to the schools to use. And everything talks about at the end of it, use the app, go ahead and be empowered. Speak up if you have information. Well, we do a lot of presentations. This is just a small list of them. We're actually working on something, a new one today with some drug issues with the school system contacting us. But it's making sure that they know that these are trends that we're aware of, you're aware of as a school system, and we have this backup now that you can report it. So we will give you curriculum sheets if you want to have conversations with your students. We are always available online to do presentations just like today, or, if possible, we will have someone come out and try to do a presentation live with the students to encourage people to speak up. This is our website so for when schools are signing up, go to safeschoolslouisiana.com. It kind of gives you a run through of what's there for you, how the process works. Parents can look a little bit about our program. And then, of course, we tell students to come here to submit tips. So we're looking for tips or follow-ups. Again, they can follow up with us by that tip number that they submitted. It's all here on the website for them. Again, for us, we are not letting anything sit. This is completely staffed. So I just, again, with the pull down of the templates, with the many years of this Crime Stoppers started in 1976, I think, but we've been in the school arena again since 2000. But we've learned through that process of what works and doesn't work, and we're always wanting to hear from the school systems how we can make it better. So know that this is never something that's just set one way in stone. We will try to accommodate you at any time to make it better for your school system. So what happens when my team members changed? I briefly mentioned this. We will go in and change them for you in the, in the skeleton backup of the team setups for the software, or you have the ability to do that too. Most schools tend to send it to us and they want us to do the changes, and that's just fine. If you receive a tip after hours, what happens? First off, our tips are sent, we don't hold tips. So they're going to be sent to you at all hours of the day, 24/7. But if it's an emergency, that's the emergency tips that we have the life safety feature set up for. So we're going to be contacting someone. First, it'll be a text. After you're always going to get an email, you're going to get a text, and eventually you'll get a phone call if someone hasn't responded to the life safety. But again, all tips are sent to you. We're not going to hold tips. We're not asking you to have to react on a tip that's not urgent or an emergency tip. You react during your time frame, but there is the life safety issues to be aware of. How much time does it take to get up and running on this program? I always laugh and I tell school system, it could be as quick as 2 weeks, probably, or even less, depending on the school system. It's up to you to be able to take the time and just get the information back to us, but it's very quickly. And part of that being up and live, again, is showing the students the 8-minute video so that they're aware and they understand what the program is. And yes, you can run reports. That's the other question we always get. Yes, you can, or we will run them for you. Here's our contact information. And, please know that you can reach out to me at any time. We are housed in Metairie, Louisiana. I sit in the sheriff's office here in their criminal intelligence building. That's a free office space that we have. But we are available across the state. There's also Crime Stopper programs that we partner with across the state. So we're just a phone call or an email away. And, we appreciate all the school partners we have. We have several onboarding, and we look forward to seeing what that's going to look like in the new year. But y'all have done an incredible job. I mean, the schools who have worked with us, I can't say enough of how the dedication and the just the compassion that they have for their students. It's really been a wonderful experience. So I do thank you for that. Thank you for allowing us to be privileged enough to be your partner with that. So I don't know if there's any questions that I might answer.
Don't see any more in the chat. Ms. Pullen's got a couple of them. You answered one of them. So are there any additional questions for Darlene? Drop them in the chat or speak up if you'd like. Okay. Right, you should see an evaluation link for the Crime Stoppers presentation. Darlene, thank you and your staff for your commitment to this work. As always, we consider you a valuable partner in this work. For those of you out there that are not working with Crime Stoppers, I would certainly encourage you to contact Darlene. She will be a committed and valued partner for you in addressing anonymous reporting. So encourage you to do that as soon as you can if you're not currently working with her.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. All right, Darlene, thanks a lot again, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Give us a moment. We'll start the next presentation momentarily. 11:39, 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We end today with the School and Nonprofit Security Grant Program, which is a competitive state-funded grant program for local school systems and nonprofits to fund school safety projects, which prevents potential acts of violence or other extremist attacks. The priorities include physical and security enhancements, enhancing the protection of soft targets, crowded places, effective planning, training and awareness campaigns and exercises. We're pleased to welcome Kelly Parks, branch manager of the Louisiana Center for Safe Schools. Kelly is currently responsible for grants as well as the day-to-day task of the section. She previously worked at Louisiana State Police from 2008 to 2018 in criminal records, completing background checks, updating records, training on the AFIS fingerprint scanners, and testifying as an expert witness on fingerprint comparison. She then worked at the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement as a grant program manager. She administered and managed multiple federal grants for law enforcement and one state grant from 2018 to 2024. In her free time, she likes to spend time with her husband, David, and daughter going to the movies, building Lego sets, and spending time watching her daughter sing and dance. It's all yours, Kelly.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? I'm happy that we've kept most people in on the last session before lunch, but I am very excited y'all are here. Okay, so as we've been referring to lately, the School Safety Act of 2023, it created both us here at the Center, Louisiana Center for Safe Schools, as well as it created a commission that has a oversight of our grants. So we are telling you about this today just to make you aware that all of our grants run through our commission and they're approved by them. These are our commissioners. We try having a buy-in from everyone. It's a very holistic approach. This is all people that have been statutorily our commissioners. We hope to encourage more people to join. We are trying to start adding people to our committees soon to be able to expand out from this list that just was provided to us, but be able to have more buy-in from people. I'm gonna go a little bit historical, just what we've done the last few months. We've had a very busy couple months here. We had Jacques Thibodeau named as our executive director here at GOSEP, and then he subsequently named Travis Thompson, our director here at the Center for Safe Schools. We got up off the ground here in January with the hiring of all of our personnel. We partnered with STMI for statewide dashboard and reporting. And then we also released that questionnaire for all of our schools to answer to kind of get a baseline on where do we stand with different initiatives and where do we stand on safety in Louisiana. We launched the School and Nonprofit Security Grant Program that actually launched in April. And so we've been doing really well with, we collected over 306 applications. So we read through all of them. It was quite a bit of work. And then we also submitted an annual school safety report to the governor. Okay, so when we did our questionnaire, we asked about everything as best we could. We asked about your EOPs, we asked about the anonymous reporting, we asked about SROs, school study assessments, crisis plans, everything we could think of at the time. We know that there's a lot more that we've already decided we're going to probably do another one in fall of this year, if not spring of next year, to capture more information. But as you can see in front of you, these were kind of how many, this is a little bit old data, but this is how many schools that we had and how many answered. We had really great percentage for a lot of them, but we still have some that we need to work on. So we are doing outreach. We do have a couple of regional coordinators that have been, that are on the meeting today with us. And so they will be probably reaching out to you starting when school starts again to ask you to help complete the survey so that we can get some more information. And it's not a bad thing. The questionnaire you have to answer in order to be able to be eligible to apply for our grant. It's a small step, but we feel it's an important step so that we have a baseline when we are asking for federal or state funding. We then have that information. We can go forward and say, what do we need and what we don't need. Okay, so this is what we came up with as a dashboard. It's right now, internal only. We are working on external one for some of our partners, everyone to be able to see. But this is a dashboard that we have an idea of who has what, per school in the state, and then also who answered. So this helps us to know how many SROs are on campuses, where are they? And officer reporting and rave, which schools are using it, which ones are not. If they have a rave equivalent, or someone else for anonymous reporting. Bleed kits, where are they located right now? And then currently, who has their EOP plan? How often is it updated and such? Okay, so we're gonna get back to our school grant. We had $5 million. We had a maximum award of $50,000. We tried to distribute them by GOSEP region so that we were giving a distribution equity throughout the whole state and not just in one area. Again, so over 306 schools applied, which was absolutely fantastic our first time out. And so we awarded 126 this time. We focused on physical security enhancements, enhance the protection of soft targets, crowded places, your planning, training and awareness campaigns, and exercises. The grants right now are usually going to be running about 9 to 12 months. Most of them began January 20th or so. We tried going back to the 1st, but again, it's just kind of got a little bit ways from us with everything. And they will all end by May 31st of next year. Okay. So some common things we found when we were going through our applications that we're hoping to expand out and have people understand for next time. We can't get more than 50,000. So a lot of them we're applying for more than $50,000. That could change further down the road, but right now we know that that's a number we're sticking with just so we can have at least 100 awardees each year. Applying for more than one school and one application. Our issue we have with this is that we can't tell what the needs are of each school in that one application. I know it's hard for the districts and the fact that, they have multiple schools they want to apply for, but our issue we have is that we can't then tell what do they need. We had multiple schools that needed a fence and we wanted them to be able to do that, but when you send in one application for that district, it was hard to read it. Applications, we want you to have, if you're stating a deficiency in need, as in you need a fence or you need door locks fixed or you need your windows covered or anything like that, we want you to purchase those items. We had a lot of schools that sent in that they needed these items, but then went ahead and wanted bleed kits, knock boxes and such like that. And those are fine items to get, but we felt that if you're asking for a certain item, we'd hope that we can purchase those for you. Our last one was no sustainability plan. We had a couple of them wanting SRO officers, but the issue we have is we don't want to fund an SRO officer and then you not be able to pay for an SRO officer after 1 year. So what we hope is if you do ask for those things, please provide a sustainability plan so that we know how you're going to be paying for these items once the grant ends. And finally, some people just had budget items they did not explain. We had a couple of people had iPads. We had a couple of people had miscellaneous items on there that we weren't sure how they were going to go with your project. So we did have to cut some people's items out just because we couldn't tell how they correlated with the rest of the project. So we asked, if you're going to do that, please explain in your budget more about those budget items that you need and why. How did they go with your project? And it just helps us understand it. Again, we have staff here that they don't see grants every day that were helping us go through this. And that really helps when they can then go, okay, I see an iPad goes because you will have to go outside to do your drills. We can now then understand why you need this iPad. Okay. So right now, we currently just awarded over 100 grants at our June 2024 commission meeting. The submissions closed on May 15th. We reviewed all of them. Everyone began their projects after signing their CEA and award letter at the end of June. Our big problem right now is, or not problem, but our big thing right now holding us up is all grants are currently pending. The CEAs have to be approved by the division administration. We did not anticipate this, so it is a little bit of a holdup in the fact that Office of State Procurement has to go through and approve all these. So at the present moment, we are going to have to wait and notify them that their awards will be, they can still work on their awards, but that they can't right now be reimbursed. And so they should have got an email this past Monday about this from GM Pros. Following the approval of those CEAs, we anticipate GM Pro will be ready at that time to upload reimbursement packages. They're currently working on those items right now. LSU, with the help of SDMI, is going through right now all of the process of updating the system to be able to handle reimbursements. They will have a training aid that will come out, and that training aid will then be provided to all the schools about this. Also, I've been told, we don't know when it's going to start, but it looks like it might be September, October. GoStep employees will be starting the process of monitoring or site visiting all grantees, or all awardees, sorry. These will take a little bit of time, as it's 126. We believe that most of them will be monitoring by phone, but I know that my staff and some of us also do want to come out and see your school sites, see what you are buying. So we hope to be able to come see some of you, and we are excited to be able to do that. If you have any questions about the grant process right now, please don't hesitate to email us. We are more than be happy to answer any emails you have. Our email address is lasafeschools@la.gov. Okay. So as we're going forward, FY 2025, we already have another $5 million in the can right now. We believe about mid-August, we will be having that funding available and ready for all of you to be able to be awarded. What we hope is that everyone that was not awarded the first round, round 2024, it will be a priority for 2025. And we hope that it should be in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to send you our open portal again to be able to make changes to your applications. We have some schools we'll be reaching out to, wanting them to fix their budget, and we will send them an email and explain why. Some of you will be asked to fix your timelines and the fact that adjusting them accordingly. The big thing for the FY 2025 funding is it's going to run the same time period right now as FY 24. FY 24 should have actually already have ended before this even began, but it's a holdover from last year. So we're actually gonna be having 2 state grants open and running at the same time. We do have some grant information sessions that we're going to go through. They're listed below, and they're also listed here. I'll give you all a few minutes to take a picture if you like. These are all of the Microsoft Teams that I'll be hosting starting next week. We are trying, they'll walk you through the grant portal, how to apply, how to do some information right now on how to sign the CEA, the award package, how to submit it back to us. Again, more common things we found. It's a lot more in-depth. We're trying to do actually an hour-and-a-half presentation where y'all can ask detailed questions to us, anything that y'all might come up with. So please, we ask anyone that wants to attend, they're on our website. And we also have a newsletter coming out that you should be starting to receive today. Okay, so how to apply for future funding? You have to answer our survey. That's required. That's just because we want to have that data, be able to move forward. We currently don't have an updated NOFO, but our notice of funding opportunity will be updated once we have it available. But you're able to always look at our old NOFO that's still currently on our website, and then join our mailing list for our newsletter. We're going to be trying to update that monthly right now as things come out. We want to keep y'all updated on what is going on. We have multiple initiatives going on at our center here, and we want to let you know that we have free trainings all the time happening. Again, grant, new things changing, new tips, new ideas that we're having, and we want y'all to be well aware of them. This is actually what our newsletter currently looks like right now, and it was live this morning. You're able to go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. I'll also have it at the end of this session. If anyone wants to email me about it, they can. I don't mind honestly accepting emails about our newsletter. We're very proud of it. So I'm going to mention the federal funding. BJA Stop School Violence Program Competitive Grant. They have a grant that is for anonymous reporting, for rave, well, not rave, but panic button app. They have it for developing your multidisciplinary team. They have SROs, all different kinds of things that will be funded through this. The COPS School Violence Prevention Program as well. They also do different initiatives for them. I ask that y'all please take a look on both their websites and see what they're both doing. You can get sometimes up to $1 million depending on the program for your district, possibly even your school, depending on if you are a district program or parochial schools or even not or charter. And then the last one is the COPS hiring program. This is actually for SROs. They will do a grant for you to have an SRO. I think it's up to 3 years on your campus. But again, I always tell people to check these out. They're available to any and all schools in Louisiana. Usually solicitations come out around February, March every year. And usually the deadline is around May or June of each year that you have to put in for. More information I can provide. I also still have an old presentation I have of a Grants 101 session about federal grants. If anyone is interested and they just want to have a copy of that, it's a little outdated, but it gives you a general overview of how you walk through and apply for a federal grant. Okay, so back to this is our Center for Safe Schools website. We do have resources available for each of our planned audiences. We went through recently and updated all of our sections of our website. We please ask you to take a look at them. We always are trying to make sure we give you the most up-to-date information that you can have for safe schools in Louisiana. Again, we just provided more information for all of these. We do have an updated training coming up. I don't know if it still has some spots. It did as of last week. It's the I Love You Guys, the standard response protocol, and the standard reunification method. It is a full day train the trainer workshop, and it'll be out in Lake Charles. If you have not signed up, we ask you to join us, please. We hope that there's some more spots available, but we also hope that they're going to be doing some more trainings coming up soon. Okay, and then we also have an upcoming training with Learn. We're going to be doing a Stop the Bleed training out of Region 6. So we ask right now, only Region 6 come to this, and we're going to be expanding out from here. They'll be doing it at our mega shelter. It will be July 24th. We're having 2 sessions that day. I think we're going up to 100 to 150 people that we're going to allow. We're trying to make sure that everyone understands this will be a train the trainer model though. So anyone that attends, we hope that they will be ready to actually train their school districts, their staff. From there, we then will use them or have them help force multiply with us to be able to continue training in their area. They will receive a certificate at this training. You'll have some of our staff will be there. And again, this is with Learn. If you'll have any questions, this will be on our website, under our calendar. It'll be on our newsletter. Some people are also getting emailed out from OSEP director and everything else. So we please ask y'all to come. Okay, we do have questions. If anyone, we also have a survey. I try keeping this short on time because I know it's before lunchtime and everyone's ready to get out, but we ask y'all to answer our survey so we kind of get general feedback information. We know that it was short today, so I did not get to go into great detail, but we do want y'all to let us know how we did. And then last is my boss and I. This is our contact information. please feel free to contact us anytime. We don't mind. We are available. We are, a resource for all of you. So does anyone have any questions? Please let us know. Mike?
Thank you, Kelly. Questions in the chat, or if you want to come off of mute, questions for Kelly. We're right at 12 o'clock. Perfect.
Could have done it better, Mike.
Awesome. We'll take a moment in case anybody has questions. Don't want to rush anybody. Okay, not seeing any questions. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate the partnership there at GOSAP. You should see an evaluation for the last presentation. While you're doing that, we'll remind you that the slide presentations and recordings will be posted in the school system planning library. And ultimately, they will end up in the Healthy Schools Community of Practice section. And please keep in mind that Safe and Healthy Schools has a monthly Community of Practice call on the 4th Thursday of each month at 2 p.m. And that'll start this month. So we'll be pushing out some more health and safety information throughout the months coming forward. So please be aware of that and look for those presentations as well while you're looking for the School Safety Summit presentations. Give us a couple of days to get these presentations posted. And before I say some final thank yous, just want to make sure there are no outstanding questions from anybody. All right, hearing none. First of all, thank you to our speakers for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us over the last couple of days. We certainly consider all of you to be valuable partners in addressing safety in schools. I need to send a special thank you to our LDOE Career and College Readiness staff, my team in the Safe and Healthy Schools, Louisiana State Police, Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Planning, and the Louisiana Center for Safe Schools. None of this would be possible without your guidance and support. We thank everyone for joining us for the 2024 School Safety Summit. We hope that we have provided you with the guidance, resources, and context to support you in protecting your schools and communities. We are all responsible for the safety and care of students and educators. As you return to your workplace, think about some of the things you have learned over the past 2 days and take action. Enjoy your day. Thanks for your participation.